Oh, caught you suckers off guard again. No, I'm just saying I caught these suckers off guard. I know people wasn't thinking. Let me get my stash right. Get my vein right, Vein means face or front. But anyway, y'all can fire away with the questions as you will. I'll get to them things at the end. Um, I'm fresh off a salad, so it's like dope right now for me. And so I'm before I crash, I'm about to light y'all up with something I was talking about today. And at least I got some support here, somebody that can keep me kind of on track for what I was talking about. And I guess let's just begin. So I was talking to somebody that's pretty knowledgeable, somebody that has a pretty good understanding of life and you know awareness in general. I guess if you can be aware of awareness, I guess that's what the whole thing is about, right? But there's somebody that is has a grasp or an idea of what's going on in this world. So um, we were talking, and we were just talking about like uh, the as far as different levels of parasitism or whatever, different levels of being a parasite. And I was just telling this person, I was telling her about like how you know I'm gonna just talk about my father, I guess. I love my father or whatever, don't get me wrong, but just to get this point across, drive it home, I feel like he was somebody that if he was to, he's a physical therapist. So basically, essentially, he works for Big Pharma because, the medical industry is so heavily subsidized by the government that it's basically like working for the government. So you're working for the vampire pyramid. You're accepting this trickle down from, the vampire pyramid. That's the energy that you're getting. So when it comes to like accepting certain energy, it's stabilizing your body energetically. You know, if you have a cushy job, you have a certain level of a certain comfort level. Your nervous system is in a certain state because you have a certain comfort level because you make a certain amount of money in this illusory situation, that we call an economy or a society, whatever. So your body stays in a certain level of relaxation. So then, your body is actually being propped up by the vampire pyramid or however you want to look at it. You're you're if you're not being your own boss and you're being, you're going vicariously paying yourself through parasites, then your body is being energetically sustained by parasites. So it's like a false stasis. That's what I was calling it. Basically, like a false homeostasis, like energetically. It's really no different than eating meat or eating anything dead or, consuming energy that isn't designed for the vessel. So you have these other parasites that process that energy for you because it's not for you, it's for this parasite, it's for this thing that you're sharing your body with. And since you share a face, you take credit for the things that the parasite does. So I was just saying like how basically it's basically fear, to that's housing the parasite. The parasite's feeding off your fear. So so you're killing me. So like if you have a if you have a job or whatever in the society, in this it's really not society and it's this barbarism. If you have a job that is in this place that and you're not like a freelancer, you're not controlling your own destiny. Like I was saying, for instance, from when it comes to my dad, like I was like, man, he's been working in his job for so long and it's been sustaining his nervous system and his body in general. It's been energetically sustained by this positioning in the vampire pyramid. Even though he's like a low level vamp, basically, he's not even really being a vamp. He has some shred, and he's still being a vamp, but I'm saying like he has some shred of himself because he's doing something that is overall good for, people in general. As a physical therapist, he's helping people circulate their blood. So that at some level, that's good for the collective, right? So he gets to be himself for periods of the day. It's not like sustained 24 hours of self. If if you want to look at it like in an hour sense or whatever. Like how much of the day are you really yourself? And that's really going to be determined by the energy that you accept. So the energy, if you're accepting energy that is coming from a parasitic source, then it's just going to fuel parasitic endeavors, and then you're just not going to be yourself anyway. So like it's really no different than um than anything, like I said, like eating meat or whatever, because it's sustaining this fear. If you was to stop your job right now and you had to stop right now, how much fear would live in your body? That fear is there. It's there, consistently there. You're living with that fear. It's just like, people just aren't, they're not removing that. They're not stepping into that space of like, oh man, what if if I woke up tomorrow and no longer had a job? Like, how would I get along? How would I sustain myself? What would I, where would my energy be, my energetic state be? And I was just saying, like, basically, when you're housing that fear, you're basically how everything that where the fear is being stored and all the organs and everything, it's coming out in different ways, and so that the self can't occupy those areas of the body. So a person that's angry, person that is bitter, is gonna want sweets and sugary things. So they're gonna crave carbs and sugars and even fructose, in large amounts because they're bitter. You know what I mean? And that's just a fear in the liver, and it comes out as anger or bitterness or whatever. And so if you are depressed and you're afraid of being in control of your vitality and feeling content and basically the opposite of depressed, then you have a fear stored in your lungs. If you're anxious, then you have fear stored in your bladder and kidneys and everything. So the self can't occupy those areas. Those areas are being regulated by a parasite that lives off of that fear. And if it's basically jacked into most people on earth at this point, like the great majority, 99.9% of motherfuckers are jacked into by this common enemy that we have as a species, which is this parasite that feeds off of fear. Because that's really it. Pride is fear. Pride, is basically immature shame, like I was saying in the last video. So it's just fear. So the fear is being fed off of, and you're getting paid back. Like you're making an exchange. Like, okay, I'm gonna be afraid. Exchange my fear energy for money. So it's like a crazy translation of fear energy. It's a crazy conversion rate that it's a losing game. No matter how much money you think you're getting, you're exchanging. If you're afraid of losing your job tomorrow, then there's a lot of fear living in your body. So you obviously are exchanging a lot of energy. Maybe you're just numb to those areas of your body, but you're hemorrhaging massive energy. You're going to a job, right? Anybody that read Job knows, or Yob. It's really a Yob, it's no J's. You know what I mean? It's really Yob. It's not a job. If it'd be spelled differently, honestly. It's a Yob or a Yob. But anyway, I digress or whatever. If you read that, it's Job or Job, the book of Job, right? This is a person that's extremely proud, right? Somebody that's really proud and being tempted because they come from decadence and they're really haughty and they have a lot of fear. They have a lot of material things that they've made manifest, be it children and the house and all these things. And he gets all these things removed from him. And, ultimately, if he doesn't rebuke the creator, then he gets everything that was taken from him returned back to him because he, endured, But the whole book is basically about vanity. You know what I mean? And vanity, again, is just fear, man. Because they say, like, it's just fear or love. You know what I mean? Love is just contentment, though. Really. Like, love is very logical. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not just some emotional thing. Love is also logical. Like, your emotions are following your logic. If you are content, you're going to move logistically, and then your emotions will follow that and amplify your logic. And then they'll marry each other, like masculine and feminine, logic and emotion, rational and irrational. So if you are prideful, slothful, um, wrathful, greedy. Um, what are the other sins? Lustful. The seven deadly sins, man. You know what I mean? I'm not firing totally right now, but the seven deadly sins. If you're any of those are all pride, different shades of pride or whatever, different um forms of pride. You can look different filters. You can look at it like that of pride, and pride is just fear. So fear again. If people say it's either you're making decisions out of fear or love. So if you're being sustained by energy that's parasitic, you have no choice but to be a parasite. There's no, you know, you got to look at it like, again, like I said, if you was to stop right now, if somebody is paying themselves and they control their own destiny, and they're not operating from a parasitic place, and they're getting energy, righteously or correctly or whatever, holistically, energy that their whole being can agree with, then they can stop right now. They can stop and start at will because they control their own destiny. But if you are working through a parasitic medium, then and the parasitic medium is the fucking personality, the persona. People go to work and they have this persona that they cater to, and they cater to that persona, and they because many different reasons. And then there's other people that they meet while they're in that persona. Those people are all catering to their persona. So you're not really meeting each other. You're all meeting like shades or like curated illusory versions of self or whatever. Because again, like truth doesn't have versions, Truth is just truth. There's no fucking version of truth. Versions of truth are mistruths. So it's just truth or different degrees of lies. So what I mean, it's just how afraid are you? How much fear does your body harbor? And that's pretty much what's determining your control of your destiny. You know, so like if it's a person, man, I guess I gotta I have to go into actual examples, man, and I just feel like it's better for me to do this even though people are like, yo, you throwing people under the bus or whatever. I'm really not though, man, because it's still my life too. But like when I used to mess with Audra, when she was dancing, she used to get that money and then spend that money in my life. And then I could feel like I could see how she's accepting that parasitic money into her life and then spending it in my life. And I can see this all parasitic energy is creeping and bleeding into my life. So like I'm accepting that energy. So I'm accepting a certain level of parasitic energy and a false selfness in my own life. So it's just you got to really the more that you get in touch with your true nature, well, the more that you stop accepting that energy, the parasitic energy, the more you're gonna get in touch with your true nature. And that's when I had to realize how evil I was being, or how evil I am, however you want to look at it. You know what I mean? Maybe I was always evil, but I just wasn't conscious of it. You know what I mean? Of exactly like the depths of it. And knowing the state, I can move from that state. If I know the reality, if I'm dwelling in the reality, then I can actually move from that place. But if I'm never addressing the reality, then I'll never be able to make any improvements and advance in my life or move forward and stop being stagnant. So it really was like I had to get to that point where I'm like, yo, I'm no longer going to accept parasitic energy. And I'm communicating this to her. And obviously she lives a life now where, she's less parasitic, you know. Um, I don't know, I guess you be the judge. I don't know. I know people have their different opinions on her and, her lifestyle or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, she was accepting energy that was corrosive to her true self. She had to be her false self to get that energy. And then she's like getting the scraps of the energy because she's hemorrhaging a mass amount of energy and selling herself. Because it's like a deep fear. Like if the more that you selling yourself, then obviously the more fear that has to dwell in you because the self is leaving. So then there's more fear residing in you. So it's the exchange isn't worth it. Like they say, like if you sell your soul or whatever, what can you give in exchange to get it back? You don't have anything in exchange of equal value once you give it away. So It's really just about what you accept. So the more that you stop accepting it, the more that you're going to really go through a real detox process. You know what I mean? More than that, the food and all that will follow that. You know what I mean? You'll go through different periods of detoxing from the food and everything. Once you stop accepting certain emotional energy that's sustaining you energetically, you know, you got people around you that are parasitic, or people that you work with is parasitic, and you accept the energy flow through your system. There's no way. It's not even. It's really physics. You mentally might be like, "Look, I can transmute this," but that's really taxing. You know, trust me. I mean, you don't even have to trust me. I know what it's like to absorb hate or to absorb lustful energy, fear. It's all fear. To absorb that and then convert it and make it work. You know, it's just got a low fuel economy. It's not. It's very low miles per gallon off of that energy. So, in the long run, if you're looking at it in the long run, because you're robbing yourself of what you could be doing with yourself right now, and you're really being yourself. You know what I mean? Because it's really a narrow path. You know what I mean? You have to reduce your identity to the primal identity, and then that narrow path seems more grand. But from the state of false self and the state of persona, the path, it seems extremely narrow to be the self. You know, because you're gonna be minimalizing more. You're gonna be minimizing more and more, constantly, just minimizing and reducing. It's just constantly reduction is production, negation is creation. That whole process of reducing it, going through constant humiliation, humbling yourself. It's just constant. It really does not end. The humiliation, you know, the humbling yourself before the creator within you, however you want to look at it, and truly aligning with yourself so that you can align with the self, and however you want to look at it, the creator, to create align with the creator within, the originator within, and then you align with the originator in general, that is the originator of all originators. So the more that you have certain energy flowing through you, it's not possible. You're not walking in that likeness. Your body is literally not it is literally being propped up and being sustained by something like again, it's just like being on autopilot. And so you've got this energy flowing through you that's keeping you in a certain space. So once you stop accepting that energy, then you're really going to go through the detox. It's emotional. As far as fasting and everything, it's really emotional first, and then everything else follows, and you stop eating the food or whatever. You go through your periods of just water and all that stuff. But like, everybody wants to do the wrong things in a better way. You know what I mean? We even like, for me, I started getting into veganism because I felt like, oh, it's giving me an edge as a quarterback on the football field. I have more clarity, and then I'm using my gifts on the football field, and it's just like this inorganic way of using my gifts, this non-holistic way of using my gifts, like, and the gifts are going to be used one way or another. The gifts that have been bestowed upon you from the true self, or the most high, the most I, whatever. But so you'd rather use those gifts in a respectful way, or a way that you can walk away from life and be like, oh, that was respectful from beginning to end, or whatever, however you want to look at it. Once, really, just from the point of realization, once you realize something is wrong, then you can, you have to accept it and move forward from then. But if you keep making excuses and rationalizing things, and the ends justify the means, then you're just gonna suffer, man, or you're just not gonna dwell in reality. Because like, if you're doing the wrong thing and you know it's incorrect, it's just like, if fire burns, fire burns. So once you learn that, if you continue to touch the fire, the whole process of going towards the fire is a painful process. You're starting to burn before you even get to it, because like conceptually you already know that it's going to burn. So you're suffering through that whole process. Whereas like, if you were just ignorantly going into the fire, then you get burned, and then you realize like, oh, fire burns. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm gonna, accept this reality that fire burns, and move in another direction. And now so I can use the fire in another way. You know what I mean? Like, temptation is the light. Like they say, Prometheus or Lucifer was the light bearer, right? And he just, the temptation. So it can either blind you or burn you, or it can shed the light, so you're being constantly tempted or tested. And if you don't succumb to the temptation, then you can use that temptation, that light, to guide you further, realizing what not to do, what you're supposed to do. It becomes more apparent, becomes more obvious, and life never really tempts you more than you're able of withstanding. You know what I mean? That's like kind of, you always have to remember that, like, the temptation is never greater than you. It just depends on where your identity is. So it's really like, it's the same thing with people that got the vaccine, man. People that got the vaccine had a deep fear. It's a deep sense of fear. Anybody getting up and going to a job, going to 9 to 5, going to any kind of job, it's a deep sense of fear that they like, oh man, if I stop working, then I'm going to have to be humiliated, go through some crazy amount of humiliation or humbleness. Then I'm going to have to tap into the creativeness in me and stop paying myself vicariously through a boss. Exchanging my breaths of life, my limited breaths that I have in this body, for money, and exchanging this fear energy for money. So it's really like, it really boils down to that. How much fear is in the body, man. That's really about it, man. Like, if you were to quit your job today and then you go and be a freelancer in whatever version of job that you're in, like I said, from my father, he should have stopped being, as soon as they threatened his job, he should have stopped being working for people and just been a freelancer, worked for himself, did it holistically, had really intimate connections with people, and been a physical therapist that way. But people will be like, I'd rather work for this person, instead of working together with people and really living with yourself. You know what I mean? Like in Proverbs, it says, like, it's better to, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, it's better to have a little and live with yourself than to have a great bounty and, not live with yourself. So it's really just like relative. You know what I mean? What's a little, what's a lot, If you're not yourself, then what's it matter what you have? It's not you anyway. If you have a yacht and you're not yourself, you don't have it. The parasite has totally possessed you. You're not really yourself. So you don't really have it. You're just living in vanity, and you're saying, like, look, I got this yacht. So people see that, and I present that to the world, and now it looks like I have a yacht, but it's a parasite that works through me, and we're sharing a face. So I'm just accepting the spoils that come from letting the parasite push me around. And so people are accepting a lot of corrosive energy at this point in the game, if you want to call it a game in life. We got Instagrams, we got all these things that are portals for energy. So we are receiving so much energy that is toxic to us. And like I was saying, this is no different than just eating chocolate all day or something like that. Something that you just can't process, just like just eating bags of salt or something like that. Your body can't really process it. So you need a parasite to come process that for you. It's just like, you can't enjoy anything while you're sick. And it's like, if you have this fear, if you're harboring this fear, you're really sick. Energetically, you're sick. So you need a parasite to come and process that for you. And parasites is like servants in that way. But the more that you give up, the more that they take over. They're going to be opportunistic. They're like, this guy just going to give me the whole stage, the whole show. Well, I'm going to just run autopilot. I'm going to run my playbook until he stops it or she stops it. I'm not going to, why would I give him? Why am I going to give the power back up? The parasite's never going to give up the power. As long as you keep giving it the power. It's like, I think it was the Essene Gospel, I forget, but Jesus was saying, like, you can never get over lust by feeding lust. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. The more that you feed the demon, the more that you make sacrifices to the demon, the program that is running you, the more that you're going to be less and less yourself. It's just going to continue to grow and take more territory. And people are just being ran by the programs right now. They're not being themselves. They're running on programs. Like I said, you think about 24 hours in a day, how much of that time are you yourself? And you really definitely want to be yourself while you're in REM, in trance, when you're the most vulnerable. But people, again, they block that out because of the birth traumas, whatever it is, they're blocking that out. They don't want to be in those states of vulnerability because the last time they were in that state of vulnerability was the birth trauma. So whenever they go into that dream that's revisiting that, then they want to block it out. So that's what 100% of the addictions are about. 100% of the vanity is about some sort of trauma that was either you created the trauma and you inflicted pain, or pain was inflicted upon you. So you want to block that out. And then that's what the whole thing is. That's why people eat. That's why people smoke. That's why people fuck. That's why they do all the things they do, is so that they don't dream. Everything. Literally, everything people do is to not dream. As far as like the things that support the vanity in life and support the comforts in life, the creature comforts. All of that is to not dream. Because if you dream, then the false identity, it crumbles. And then you can no longer be in that false stasis. So then you have to be the creator. So then you have to give up everything that comes with the parasite. You gotta give up all them creature comforts. All of that stuff has to go. You're building from a shaky foundation, you know what I mean? So your value system is going to change anyway. It's just like if you fast, your tongue is going to reset. And then if you reintroduce the garbage food, all those flavors that make you numb to taste, they won't even taste good. And you'll be more satisfied with, eating unsalted vegetables or whatever it is. You'll be more satisfied with that than having something with all these flavors and mixed flavors and different seasonings and stuff, because your tongue has reset. And it's the same thing with every part of your being. If you was to stop catering to the false self, then you would become content with things that aren't so extravagant, that are very simple, very plain, very I don't want to say mundane, because mundane means like of the earth. So it's not, I want to say like something just very plain, like they say the Tao is plain. The words that point to the Tao are monotonous and everything, because that which is plain is allowing you to stay close to your own flavor. So like, it's like going towards the darkness, you find your own light. Going towards the plainness, you find your own flavor. Going towards the silence, you find your own voice, your own sound. So the more that you go towards less, the more that you realize more. So it's really just about the lesserness. It's very simple, and it's your nature. It's really like sacred geometry, physics, quantum physics, all that stuff is your nature. It's a very simple nature. No one has to teach you how to dream. It's something that you are. You are a dream creator, or you are a dream, however you want to look at it. Some people say the body's in the mind. Some people say the mind's in the body. I'm one of them people that say they're not separate. The body is the mind in 3D, or the mind is the body in 4D or 5D, whatever. They're all, it's a body. It's the oneness. Everything is the oneness. So it's all your nature. You are sacred geometry. You are quantum physics. You are whatever you want to say, an astral projection machine or whatever, an astral projector, however you want to look at it. You have an astral body that every time you daydream, you're astral projecting, and you're not being in the moment. The more that you're concerned with astral projection, the less you're going to be in the moment. Because again, thinking is the opposite of being aware. So much of it is, again, like the Wahoo Ching said, like telepathy, telekinesis, television, sending images, all of that stuff is only applicable in the realm of duality. Therefore, it is meaningless. So it's like, can you communicate with the one who has no mind? You're communicating without words, leading without force. It's all about the not that shows you the what or the how, So it's again, like I said, it's all your nature, yo. You don't have to try to dream. It's the trying that blocks the dreaming. Or what you calling a dream? I don't like to say dream, man, because again, dream comes from the word traum, and it means trauma, drum, dream, drum. So like a dream is a trauma, and so much of the astral projection is to run away from the dream. Everybody focused on astral projection, and that's probably how we all got here. We all focused on projecting from the moment. I don't know how people can look at it like, yo, you're projecting these things in life. You're not really seeing life clearly. You're projecting, but then want to go and astral project. Really, when it comes to communicating in dreams or communicating remotely, it's about just extreme focus and being in the moment. The more that you really focus on someone, or if you have a picture of them or whatever, focus on the memory, focus on their voice and you're inside of yourself. Because again, you're a radio, you're a television inside yourself. You got this holographic ability inside yourself to recall a memory. So the more that you can live in that memory and focus on them in that memory, then the more that you can tap into them. So if you're going into the trance state, if you know how to calm the body down and, really focus and be in the moment and not have any distraction within you and around you, then as far as connecting with people through dreams or connecting with people remotely, you're just connecting to a part of yourself because that's what they are. It's not like you have to go outside yourself to project to them. You're just focusing on the part of you that is them. So that's what a radio is. That's what telepathy is, it's the no separationness. And, everything is blocking that. So much is blocking that. What I mean? When it comes to everything's a gift and a curse, man, in the realm of duality. Because you got language is just, it's giving you this name, it's giving you this sense of this is me, that's that, this is separation. And now we can have this idea of telepathy and separation through, or telepathy through the separation. But, so you get certain things from exchanging, with words and communicating through words, but also limitations. I mean? You're getting restrictions and boundaries because, again, words are just letters are just sounds, and, letters are multidimensional sounds, basically. There's no separation from light and sound. They're one. So, it's all vibration, or however you want to look, all resonance or whatever, all consciousness or whatever, however you want to look at it, plasma, whatever you want to say. So, when it comes to tapping into the eternity, or tapping into timeless connections that have always existed, that are always there, or whatever that seems supernatural, you got to be super regular. That's what supernatural is. It's super regular. Being pure is to be primal. Primal means one. It's just like water has one ingredient. So if you water fast, then you're being purified. You're being more purified, being more simple. The more that you make things simple, the more that you can see. There's nothing more complex than the simple, and the complex is founded upon the simple. So the more that you can tap into simplicity, the more that everything that's complex is just, it falls in line. It becomes more obvious because you get the common denominator of everything. You don't need to really go much further than that. You can explore it, and you should explore everything that you can, but you never forget the common denominators, the simplicity, the purity, the basics of things. And that's really it, man. You got to really look at where you're accepting energy from and where your leakages are. There's a lot of rationalization going on. It's like an irrational, it's like rational to the irrational, to the point where it's irrational. People are trying to make things make sense that don't make sense. It's like ends justifying the means that don't make sense. If you got to lose your integrity to do it, then it doesn't make sense, man. It makes no sense. It's just that, like, the way you want it to look and what is, usually two different things. You know what I mean? It's, it's easier for me to speak in examples. Maybe it's that Leo and Mercury thing, or whatever. But or Mercury and Leo thing. It's like it's easier for me to speak in examples. Like I speak for like my mother. My mother, I love my mother. Don't get me wrong. I am my mother in a sense. You know what I mean? So I feel like when she was with my brother's father, she got with my brother's father to validate her darkness. You know, my mom's light skinned. She never knew who her father was. She grew up extremely poor in a very melanated life. All her brothers and sisters is darker, you know, brown or darker. And her mother is dark. Her stepfather's dark. My grandmother was forced into prostitution, so my mother is light skinned. No one knows who her father is. We can only guess that he's probably just an RH negative demon like myself. So yeah, I'm probably him. You know what I mean? You know, I am him at some level. You have everyone look at it. But to speak in this example, like my mother, she knew herself, man, because she knew a craft. She does things completely. She can complete something with her hands from beginning to end and go through that process of creation and align with the creator within and thus align with the creator in general. So she gets to live with herself because she's enhanced her life with that by not being lazy and knowing how to do that. So my mom makes costumes for like Broadway plays and like parades, like the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Day parade, stuff like that. So she's been doing this for a long time, right? She used to make clothes for entertainers and stuff. You know, she used to live in LA. So she was making clothes for Stevie Wonder for one of his videos. And then she met my brother's father. My brother's father was Stevie Wonder's best friend. So um, my mom, coming from a very melanated experience and also being melanated at the same time, her mother, she's a replica of her mother. She's a light version, and her mother's dark brown. You know what I mean? She's an Aboriginal American, really. So um, she feeling like, again, it's the fear thing. She's afraid because she don't know her father. So there's a fear that kind of comes built in. So she don't know this man. So like she's afraid to even like investigate certain things that resemble that side of the spectrum of life, you know, the light spectrum, life spectrum. She doesn't even want to indulge in those things that might remind her or gravitate her towards that. And at some level, I could totally agree with that, you know. But on another level, I think you should investigate. I don't think you have to align, but I think you should investigate just to make sure what's what. So my mother, she was so afraid of that. She was so afraid of possibly loving who this guy was or this other side of her that she don't even know. She's so afraid of loving that she wanted to go in a direction, be with someone that I love my brother's father too. Don't get me wrong, you know, God rest his soul. Um, but he was not in a healthy place. You know what I mean? And so you get that toxic relationship where you know he's trying to control her black card. You know, she got to do stuff to remain black. You know, and meanwhile he living off of her. So who's the real parasite at that point? But it's because y'all both not being yourselves, and you're both being eaten up by the same parasite that's inhabiting both of you, really. So like my mother went in that direction, and I don't think that maybe the timing is just wrong. You know, it is what it is. But I feel like instead of just being like, yo, I'm gonna have this child with you, pretty much against your will too, in a sense, because he didn't. I don't think he really wanted it based off what I've been told. You know, so she did things that she wanted to do in a rogue way, and now she created a child out of vanity. I love my brother. Don't get me wrong. I love my brother, man. We all very sick at this point energetically. You know what I mean? I can't speak for everybody, but most people breathing on this planet sick, energetically sick. They're sustained by parasitic energy, vain energy, you know, fear, deep fear. So she created a child out of a vanity, you know, to like say like, look, you know, I'm black, I'm going in this direction. So she like forced it almost. I feel like I just feel like that just from being myself, experiencing my relationships in life, and understanding this, what she went through, and I can tap into the part of me that is her, and I just see like, yo, this is what you did. You was afraid that somebody would call you white, and you know what you are. You know who your mom is, who your uncles are, who your grandfather is, who your grandmother is. You know these people. You might not know who this man is or whatever. His family could be the walking devil. They could be, but you know who you are enough, you know, to know like hey man, what's right and wrong, and what's vain and what's not vain, and what's like truly holistic. But no, she went in another direction. She went into a direction of fear, and the fear just kept amplifying. You know, I love my mom, man. I know people will be like, man, my mom might even get mad about this, but I really love my mom. I just feel like I have to speak in examples and actual events that actually happened and sheds light on it better. So like, she went into that direction where she's validating herself through someone else when she should have just been herself, and then she would have met someone else that is themselves, and they would have been themselves together. But instead, you go through the forcing it, trying to force things from the carnal will. You got that carnal level of will, where you can muscle things, where you can make the square peg go into the round hole and just make it, just suffer and go. You could do that. You can do that if you want. You have that carnal will to do that. But it's a suffering. It's a whole thing is a suffering existence. So like, she went in a direction of fear, trying to validate herself through others. And so now she made my brother, who he's like, we could talk about sickness. People are addicted to things, whatever it is, but we're all addicted to vanity. Ultimately, we're all addicted to vanity. It's fear. We're all addicted to things that are extremely vain, that will really never advance us in life. And we are addicted to it because it gives us a sense of euphoria, a false bliss, a false contentment, a carnal euphoria that um, is a massive distraction. For one, it exhausts you of your endorphins and your senses. You're not going to be able to feel no more. Again, it's just like eating a bunch of salty food. You're not going to be able to taste no more. If you operate from vanity and euphoria, you're not going to be able to feel nothing no more. You're going to need more and more vanity, more and more worship, more and more stimulation and euphoria to not even feel yourself, really, to feel to align with the false self, because the body's being drained so much and is becoming so energetically compromised that you're going to need more and more stimulation just to prop the body up, just to stay in alignment with the false self. That's why people drink coffee, eat sugar, eat these things, because the body is trying to go to sleep and get rest, or to recharge rather. The body's trying to recharge and be reclusive from the reality, or from the false reality and the false society, and step away from it. It wants to do that. It doesn't have natural energy for these things that you're trying to force it into doing, but you stimulate it into it so that you can stay in the false identity. And then it just deteriorates the body until it breaks. And then now you have this false identity that you're focused on, which is going to die. The false identity is going to die. The true identity never experiences death, but the false identity is going to die. But if you are not discerning and realizing truth from fiction, what's the false self and what's the self, then once the false self dies, then you actually experience death. And that's when the Bible talks about, you'll die and you don't experience everlasting life. Death is just false selfness, false selfishness, however you want to look at it. So the body needs more and more stimulation in order to remain in this fear state, to remain vain, to remain proud, and to stay in a certain level of comfort, which is really a deep discomfort, but you're trying to be more numb and more stimulated to not feel the discomfort. This is why people drink, for liquid confidence. It just happens on minute levels. You know what I mean? Like if it's caffeine or sugar, whatever, you're stimulating the false confidence. The energy was not there naturally, it wasn't there, but now you're forcing it to be there. You're like stealing tomorrow's energy for today, and you keep doing that and doing that and doing that until you break down, and you're so scrambled. You're using energy from 10 years from now for right now. It's just not sustainable. So then once you reach 10 years from now, your perspective of the path is so jaded that you don't even really see the opportunities that would have been there if you would have just stayed yourself the whole time and didn't stimulate and accepted that you needed to step away and recharge and be humiliated and become humblated to do that, so that you can remain yourself. Because no matter what happens, as long as you have yourself, there's a way. The self is the way. You are the way, the truth, the life, whatever, the light, however you want to look at it. So my mother had this child out of vanity. And again, I love my brother, yo, to death, for life, forever, for eternity. I love my brother. But he is so addicted to vanity that it's so toxic for him that he's made decisions like that, perpetuated that same fear, because the vanity is almost generational now. It's like hereditary. It's been passed down now, the vanity. So it's like she went from that state of, you know, getting pregnant by someone. I truly feel like she loved my brother's father, but I feel like she didn't stand on her own principles and her own values and be like, no, we need to be sober, and we need to, you need to come, meet me halfway so that we can do this holistically. You know what I mean? But that, she didn't stand on that. She wanted to do carnal things and satisfy certain states of euphoria instead of just the steady path. It's very plain. It seems very plain. It seems very simple, but again, the simplicity is so complex. Like, you think about the prime colors. Like, what makes them? They're such a simple thing, but what makes them? The things that go into making such a simple thing, just a basic color, just a true complete color, is a very basic thing, But how it came to be is very simple, but when you observe it, it's extremely complex. So she didn't want to go down that path, though. She wanted to force things from her carnal will. So now my brother comes out extremely vain. And so then from that period, she got even more, she invested in fear. So then it created more lack and more scarcity in her life. So then now, she breaks up with my brother's father. They had a rocky relationship. It was very toxic. So then she's broke. She like 30 or in her 30s. And then she gets shot in her legs. So then she can't walk. And then she meets my dad as a physical therapist. And so she just G's this dude because my dad's like a 35-year-old virgin. He didn't know. He 360 degrees. He never been with a woman before. He should have known. He should have known within himself. But he had certain distractions, and certain software and hardware was just not there for him to know. My mom knew. It's just like if you're the adult and someone's a child, even if they're a grown person, if they're not really grown, holistically, you're responsible. You're the adult. You know what I mean? So my mom had to bear that she was the one. So she had to go into a situation where she had to lead because she was the mature one. She was the one that had a greater vantage point, perspective of life. So she invested in even more fear because she wanted my dad for stability. She didn't really, love my dad in that way. I feel like they found a way to appreciate each other, especially at this point in life. They was great parents. Don't get me wrong, man. They still live together, even though they've been separated since I was like 13. So like, they stayed together for us, man. You know what I mean? For me, my sister, my brother. They was great parents, It's a gift and a curse, man, like everything. I always look at it like, man, I have a problem with the way they did things, but how can I be mad about it? Because I'm grateful for coming out being who I am in certain respects, because I didn't have certain pitfalls. I got to see certain things, because my mom didn't hold certain punches, you know. But that's neither here nor there. So she invested in even more fear, though. Again, going outside of herself for security. You should establish your own security, and then you merge or bond with people that are also secure. But if you're secure and they're insecure, you're going to breed insecurity. You need two positives, man, or however you want to look at it. You need two likenesses. You need both two secure people to beget security. If there's insecurity, that's fear. There's going to be fear there involved into the recipe of creation or alignment, whatever you want to call it. the ushering in of beings. So I was created out of just survival, out of just total fear and vanity, because she didn't want to take them lumps, man. She didn't want to be broke. She didn't want to be, to have looking at herself and being looked at in certain respects because of, what it looks like to be broke and shot in your 30s, have a kid and be single, living with your mom. Those things all look bad. Those things all look bad. But if you endure and really get through it to the other side, on your own or in a holistic way or in a way where you can live with yourself and not need to drink or smoke or whatever, then who knows what's on the other end of that? Something that what's on the other end of that is more yourself instead of going away from yourself and going towards externalized security. If you're yourself, then you always have some sense of security. But if you're going outside yourself, you're going to create from a shaky foundation. You need security. You need to have a sense of security within yourself. And that just comes from knowledge of self. The more knowledge of self that you have, the more security that you'll have in your life. Knowledge of self comes in many ways. You learn the body, you learn the not self, then you know the self. You learn in electronics, you're learning the body, you're learning the brain. You learn plumbing, you're learning the body. You're learning everything that isn't you, so then you're getting more knowledge of self. And then the more that you create things through these trades, through these crafts, the more that you're experiencing yourself, then you're being yourself. Then you're chained to those experiences where you don't get far from yourself, because you know what it's like to be yourself, and you don't want to inhibit that and get in the way of that. So it's really, the more that you accept the fear, more that you accept the insecurity and go outside yourself for validation, that you're moving, you're moving away from the likeness of self, moving more in the likeness of the false, of not reality. You're not dwelling in reality, So it's like how much of your life, how much of the day is chasing, So you're getting away from yourself. Chasing is running. People don't look at it like that. If you're a paper chaser or whatever, you're running still. If you're chasing something, you're running at some level. So it's about more so attracting and then meeting life in the middle instead of chasing life, chasing yourself. You can only chase an illusion. You can't chase yourself. Yourself is always there. Even the most toxic person on earth, even doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're obese, they do heroin, whatever it is. The self is still there. You're never really off the path. You never really separated from yourself. It's just like how much space is between you and self. How much fear is between you and self. And so that's like determining your reality, How much fear is between you and taking control of your destiny? That's how far away you are from yourself. And obviously, your breath is going to reflect that. More insecurity, you're going to have more shallow breaths. You're going to be going outside yourself more for fuel. It's going to create a compression on your lungs. You're not going to have expansion, and your lungs aren't going to fully expand. So you don't get that full communication with your body. And the amount of constriction on that expansion is another sign of how far you are from yourself. If you can't expand, that amount of space that you're giving up in expansion is another marker or measuring stick for how far you are from yourself. And if you're in contact with your breath and you're doing crafts, there's no way to not be in contact with your breath and do crafts. If you sew, if you draw, if you paint, if you're a mechanic, you're going to be in touch with your breath at some level. Or you're going to be a slacker. You're going to, you're going to have a lot of debt. You're going to miss your child's life. You might be successful monetarily, but you're going to miss things that really matter if you're not in touch with the breath. The breath is keeping you present, and the breath is keeping the fear from festering. The more that you breathe completely, the less fear that your body's going to house. So it's more so the processing of fear. Depression is just fear in the lungs, like I said. Anger is fear in the liver. Anxiety is fear in the bladder and in the kidneys. So the more that you breathe and the more that you detox, the more that the cells are going to breathe. And again, breath is communication. talking is loud breathing. So it's really, it's boiling down to the breath too. Don't get me wrong. The breath is going to play a significant role in staying in alignment with self. Just like staying hydrated, not eating things that dehydrate you. All of that is going to play in and be a factor. And all of that has to do with your fear. You know, that's why I don't like to say I'm vegan or stuff like that. Even though I don't eat animals or animal products, it's the reductionist lifestyle. It's not the vegan lifestyle or nothing like that. It's reducing. It's seeing what I don't need and realizing what I don't need. I get more confidence, more knowledge of self. The more that I realize what I don't need, the more abundance that I have. It's like if you think that you need a Lamborghini and a private jet, then every day that you wake up without that, you're just going to create more lack in your life, and your nervous system is going to suffer, and then you're going to harbor more fear because the illusion's not lining up with your experience. So it's like the Tao Te Ching said. The Tao Te Ching says like the greater the expectations, the lower the results, and expectations are what age you. The more that you expect, the more that your spirit grows old. Again, because you're projecting to expect. If you're working from a place of truth and dwelling within reality and giving from a place of contentment and giving to things that beget and breed more contentment, then you get what you give. And there's no like mystery. You're not like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to get. I guess you could have there's some mystery and like, I don't know how the karma is going to come back, but you do know ultimately like what you gave. And you got the receipt for that because you know how, energetically you left a stamp on your work. So it's coming back one way or another, It's, you just got to have, again, faith, which is FE, like Santa Fe is the saint of faith. Fe on the periodic table is iron. Iron is the blood. Full circulation is faith. So if you have the faith, that circulation, you're in touch with the breath, then you're staying in, you're not getting far enough away from yourself to where it's like some type of mystery, like, oh, did I give to the right way? Did I give in the right way? Am I greeting life? Am I meeting life correctly? Like, no, you already know what you gave. So you're going to get it. It's going to come back that way, one way or another. You got to have the patience to know, like, bigger things are going to take a lot of small things, a lot of small, correct answerings of tests throughout for days and days and days and days. You're going to have to keep answering the correct questions or the correct answers as the days go on so that you can manifest large things. Large things are just a bunch of small things. So you got to have the patience for that. If we're talking about small things, you got a 20-year plan or whatever it is, 10-year plan, 5-year plan, 2-year plan, whatever, you got to be in touch with the abstract part of you, the boundless part of you that, doesn't really operate under the rigidness of a conceptual reality. If you have expectation and a conceptual, like a conceptual expectation, then, that's okay. You can have that. That's going to exist. It's going to be there regardless. If you say you want something, then you're conceiving of it conceptually, and, you have a rigid view on how it's going to look in your mind. No doubt. But then there's this abstract element to life, which is pretty much who you are. And you got to be able to be flexible. You got to be firm and flexible at the same time. You have to be flexible enough through this process. Life is a process of many processes. You have to be flexible through those processes. So when you go to A, you get from A to Z, you might go from A to D, then back to B, then to up to H, and then back to B again. And then you just, however it happens, it's still, you're going forward. Even the steps back are a step forward, as long as you're giving from an honest place and you're not being habitual and just habitually ignorant. Ignorance is just fear and evil. You can't separate them two things. Evil is ignorance, and not just they're the same thing. Hate is just fear, right? You know what I mean? And ignorance is just hate and fear. It's the same thing. You're ignoring, so it's pride. You have the pride to think like that you can ignore, because you're gonna ignore until the point where you get break your body, and then you're going to be made aware one way or another. You're never going to be able to fully ignore. You're still going to reap what you sow and realize what you sowed or what you've sown. You're going to still realize it. You might not realize it while you're in alignment with your body, but you're still going to realize it. You can ignore things all you want. It's going to come up in your dreams. So you might as well face life head on and face it, instead of being prideful to think that you can lie to yourself and ignore life. The more that you try to ignore, the more evil you are. Ignorance is evil. The more that you ignore, the more contempt that you're going to have for life, and the more that you're not going to dwell in reality. It's very simple stuff, man. It really is. It really is very simple stuff, man. I think everybody should read Proverbs. I think it's 31 chapters in Proverbs, so you can read a chapter a day. Bang that out in a month. It will take you no time. But it'd take you like 2 hours to read it all at once. So just bang that thing out. But anyway, that's really about it, man. It's really just your body, man. I don't know. You think I'm missing anything? I don't know. It's just about how you sustain your body, If you're living in a defensive mode and you want to stay at a certain equilibrium, a false stasis, because out of defensiveness, because you feel like you have to stay at a certain density because the fear of confrontation, physical altercation, fear of confrontation, or to stay insane enough to react from a carnal place, from anger, from fear, various states of fear. Lust is fear. Fear of missing out is just lust. So, that's why people eat. That's why people do the things they do. It's just fear. And there's nothing else. It's never really been. It's just really two options, I guess. If you want to if you want to call it duality, it's not really an option. The more that you go into illusion, you can't. It's crazy how you can't grasp an illusion because it's the happiness of pursuit. People want to chase. They want because it allows them to be wanted. The more that you live in separation and you want, then the more that you can live in this idea of like, if I want is determining my reality. So whatever I want is everything that I'm not. So it's basically saying like, this is supporting your whole reality. Everything that you desire is supporting your reality. Again, what you desire is determining your energetic state. So if you want things, then you must want to be wanted. You must want to be worshipped. Again, that's my thing. That's why I stay away from people, because I know what it is energetically. I know I have work to do, you know what I mean? And I know like people say, well, you should be around people and work through it with them. I have to do things with myself at this point, just with my body, until I can really greet people and meet them in halfway, because I don't want to vamp them. I already know like the fallen angel complex is like, I'm naturally, the nature of the unnatural, intercepting people like, worship me, don't worship the creator. Worship me. That's the natural position from my unnatural state. So I have to totally fight that throughout my life, or totally not accept that throughout my life. So I don't want to, I have to not accept that energy. I can't bring people around me. I can't, certain people, most people, I cannot bring them around me, because what happens, it's like, I understand Islam a lot, as far as like women being covered in a sense. Sometimes I feel like I want to be covered. I don't want to be seen. I don't even want to be wanted, because I know what comes with that. Then I start to get looked at from that identity, and I start to see them seeing me from that identity, and then I can start to slip into that identity. Once you're being desired, you're getting that energy. Somebody looking at you, giving you that energy, you're filling that void with that energy. So then it's sustaining the body. It's creating a stasis, a false stasis. So it's corrosive in the long run. It's like if there's a natural grid in life, and like you have a bunch of graphs, right? You have a bunch of like, say there's a natural grid, right, in life, and then you grow something that's like in a container that's within its own grid within the life, but it's not rooted in reality. So it's like grown upside down in a sense. So like if it was to come out of that container, out of that false self, out of that illusion, and into reality, it's going to be destroyed because it has no roots in reality, and it's being grown backwards, upside down. It's living in a false an illusion is living backwards. Evil is lived backwards. For many people know that. So like that's kind of what it is. I don't want to accept that energy because I've done it before unconsciously. My body was in such an so energetically compromised that I was accepting energy that was destroying me, and I'm only getting scraps. It's like I'm getting this euphoria. It's like a same thing as a drug dealer. It's like I'm getting this euphoria from fucking the shit out of somebody, right? So I get this like, oh look, I'm physically desirable. I'm emotionally fucking ugly as shit and toxic, but I don't have to think about that right now because I have this euphoria and this parasite's working through me. It's extracting their energy, it's extracting my energy, and I'm getting this euphoria. So basically, what I'm doing is going to this parasite like a drug dealer and saying like, hey, here you go. Take my energy, like just like money. Take my energy, take this woman's energy, and give me my euphoria. And it's so cheap. It's so cheap and it's so sad. You know what I mean? So like once I realized that my body is so energetically compromised, once I realized that I could no longer really do it, I had different times where I'm like, okay, let me walk on the hot coals and see if it still get my feet burned. But it's like it's only so long you can do it, It's only so long you can do something the wrong thing if you really know the ins and outs of why it's wrong. And then because if you stop doing it and then go back to it, you can feel the pain. You can feel yourself being drained. You can feel yourself slipping away from yourself. And the body, you're just detached and the body is just going carnally, being ran in an autopilot by a program that is a parasitic program that is being controlled by a queen parasite. So it doesn't really make sense for me to feed the queen. I'm feeding this thing all this energy, my energy, their energy. I'm getting like just this little bit of euphoria. I'm getting my fix, right? It's just the same thing. People post pictures and they're like, look, I put this picture together. I curated this image of myself. It's your parasite. You took a picture of your parasite. To even be vain enough to take a picture, you're operating from a parasitic state. And your body's just so compromised, though, that you need the energy. So you just like posting, it's just like feeding a demon. You're feeding the wrong dog. And that dog just gets stronger and stronger and it eats the other dog. Once it's gets so strong. So the self is just no longer in the driver's seat at that point. So people get that euphoria, they get that dopamine, right? They get that whatever euphoria. They get it's energy though. They're getting sustained by some level of energy, but it's like sugar. You crash and then you want more sugar, even if it's fructose, And again, with the fruits have been designed to be more juicy, more sweet, to look a certain way. They're cultivars. The fruits attack us in a similar way to keep us we're bitter. No matter what sugar you want, it's stemming from some level of bitterness. Especially if you're eating more than a handful. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's like I haven't done it or won't do it. I'm just saying like it's like methadone for me at this point. I'm not going to lose sight of that though, because I have experienced long periods of no calories or long periods of just coconut water, and not just Thai coconuts too, because they're so sweet. You know what I mean? I like the South American coconuts because for one, they don't have to go as far to get to me. They're not bleached and irradiated a lot of the times, and again, less sugar, so less of a rush, because you get this rush, this euphoria, then you crash, and then you want more. And like Sebi was saying, you do cocaine, and then your energy increases momentarily, and then it crashes lower than it was when you started. and then you need more cocaine, and then you keep crashing lower than that, and you keep going like that. And it's the same thing, whether it's posting an Instagram picture, whether it's anything, man, whether it's fucking the shit out of chicks, whether it's chicks just extracting energy from dudes sexually, whatever it is, you're going to need more and more and more of it as your body becomes more and more compromised as you accept that energy. It's not even a question, it's physics. You know what I mean? It's not like you could be like, oh, I'm gonna accept this energy and then I'm gonna do the right thing with it. You know what I mean? Like, no. If you got the energy the wrong way, it's gonna go into the wrong avenues. You know? Like, that's just how it's gonna go. You know what I mean? It's always gonna come back around, you know what I mean? Because energy returns from where it came from. So if you got toxic energy, it's gonna go back into a toxic avenue. You know what I mean? And if you transmute that energy, it's gonna cost you so much in that process. You know what I mean? Say if you rob a bank or you sell a bunch of drugs, and then you got this energy that you're gonna have to slowly bleed into the system, because you can't, if you pop up with a bunch of energy, then again, it's an energetic grid we live on, a grid of consciousness. The consciousness and different the regulators, the police, whatever it is, the different various forms of regulators are going to realize this burst of energy. It's like a fireworks show coming into the system. So that's why, like, anybody that listened to like Nipsey or whatever, Nipsey was saying he had like hundreds of thousands of dollars buried in the ground because he could. You can't just throw money and you can't just spend a bunch of money if you got a bunch of money illegally the wrong way. You know, if you got the money in a illegitimate way, then you got to the way to process it and to make it legitimate, you have to gradually launder it. You know, like if you're doing laundry, you don't put all the stuff in the washer at once. You know, you put like just enough of one load, and you wash that. Then you put the next load in and wash that. You don't just like throw the whole thing in there, or it won't be washed correctly. You know what I mean? And you'll see that you're dirty. You know what I mean? You can see. So it's the same thing, man. It really is the same thing. So if you are doing the wrong thing to try to transmute it into the right thing, the process of transmuting it into the right thing, you're going to use the same amount of energy that you would have used just doing the right thing to start. And because the stress, you know, people ask me all the time, like, yo, how'd you get this land? How'd you get this thing? How you travel to Earth? I'm like, yo, because stress. I was exchanging stress energy. You know, people, you can numb it. You know, you look at a lot of the people that get large amounts of money, they just numb it. They're stressing their body out because they're receiving so much energy. It's like a circuit, electrical circuit in your house. There's too much energy coming into it, it just gets fried. So the body is just basically just burning out. It's short circuiting. It's not enough. The energy, it's not, the body cannot house that much energy at once. So the only way to keep making the energy flow through is to destroy the channels of the body, just blowing them things open and staying numb so that the energy can continue to flow through. But that give and take it's not worth it. In the long run, it's not worth it. You're not going to live with yourself, and then your body's going to be so damaged energetically because it's so compromised. You're accepting more energy than you can take at once, and it's the wrong energy. So the body's going to break down, and then you just attract. It's just like if you leave sugar out, you know, you get a bunch of flies. You know, if you leave, you know, or meat or anything like that, you leave that out, you get you get flies, you get maggots, that's what you get, but you get it in human forms. You get human worms, human flies, human mosquitoes, all of that. So it's, you know, it's no separation. So it's really like, what do you want? Do you want sustained contentment, or do you want fleeting euphoria? The false bliss. You know? Contentment, man. Contentment seems so plain, but it's so grand. You know, that's just being present and content is being eternal. You know? But we're defensive. You know what I mean? I speak for myself when I say this too. I need to be worshipped to trust a motherfucker at this point in my life. I don't try. I put myself in a position to where it's tough for me to trust people. They gotta worship me. If they don't worship me, then I don't trust them. But then I don't want to keep them around if they worship me, because I'm like, you're putting yourself down. You shouldn't put me on a pedestal. Why would you do that? Now I hate myself for keeping you around. So it's just just energetic compromise. You know what I mean? And it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. You know what I mean? You just want to do the small things and take the small steps and have patience. And if it takes a long amount of time, what's it really matter if you're a quantum being and you're really not bound by time, and it's really just about living with yourself, with eternity, and it doesn't really, matter how you get there, as long as you get there being yourself and get there whole. You don't want to get there in pieces. You rather get there completely, so that you're born, you arrive completely, you live your life being yourself, complete self, unobstructed. Then you transition completely. There's nothing left behind, and you move on to the next thing completely. But if you are in this false identity, then you got so much attachment. There's so many things that are still bound up here energetically that you're just going to keep looping, because you've made contracts with parasites, whether you call them personas, whether you call them parasites, whether you call them demons, whatever it is. These are contracts. If you say I'm going to get up and go to a job, and you sign a contract to have a salary for some job, that's a contract. And then you have the energetic level of contract where you're like, all right, well, that means I'm going to be this false person. If you say you're a telemarketer, I'm like, hey, yeah, this is Brad. I'm here with so and so, and if you're that, then you got to be the false self, be the false voice. Then you start to lose touch with the true voice. All of that you start to fade from it, because it's like you don't use it, you lose it. You know what I mean? If you are from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, not being yourself and in a chasing state, then you're never, you're missing a third of your day or more is missed being what you aren't. And then you're going to be exhausted. So then when you go to sleep, you're so compartmentalized. So you're just dwelling in reality. It's just your reality is being pushed into just your dreams. That's the only time you're really dwelling in reality. You're not really dwelling in reality in the conscious state. So, that's another reason why, I feel like if people did psychedelics correctly, they would do it at 2 a.m. The times when you're not usually conscious. Because that's what sleep is. It's a summation of unconsciousness. You got these different indulgences in the day that create separation within the body, separation from the breath, and they tax you, all these indulgences, and that create you are already sleepwalking to indulge. So then you actually go to sleep where the parasite wants you, so they can keep performing the inception to make you keep looping and doing the same behaviors. So all your sleepwalking gets compressed into actual sleep. And that's your 8 hours or whatever, how long you're sleeping. But in that period, you're passing out. You're not really being yourself. You're not calmly content and going into this experience, what you call a dream or sleep or whatever. So you're not really acquainted with this, a third of your life, a third of yourself, at least, if you're not transitioning from scene to scene in what you call dreams. If you're complete and you completely go into one phase of the dream, then you go into the next one, and there's smooth transitions, And once you've gone through certain states of being, if you fast extensively and you do 100 days in a row of an hour of breath work before food or water, if you have an experience like that in your lifetime, then you're going to get more and more in touch with, and you're sober, you get more in touch with your dreams. So then you're going to see how the day transitions. The rising sign, every 2 hours the sun's in a different sign, right? So in throughout the day, you look at the TCM organ clock, your consciousness is cycling through your body. Your blood is like liquid consciousness. It's cycling through your body. Every 2 hours you're having different shifts. Your body's going through different shifts. You detox different organs for 2 hour periods at a time. So your consciousness is in a different way. So if certain organs are obstructed, when you go through those detox phases for those organs, you're going to experience certain levels of discomfort or certain states of consciousness, certain states of separation from breath, depending on how you treat your body. But if you're in alignment with yourself and your body is all communicating all on a cellular level, then you have total consciousness, total circulation. So then you're in touch with the transitions. Every 2 hour period, you can see how they start, how you going into this state. Anybody, or like from one state to the next, and then you go through that same thing in a kaleidoscopic way in the dreams. Anybody that has pulled an all-nighter knows if you get past a certain state to where the sun comes up again, you get this burst of energy, and you're like, okay, fine, I can make it to the next night. That has everything to do with whatever organ you're detoxing now. You're in a different stage of the detox, different stage. Your consciousness, your blood is allocated to a different part of you. So it's just like you could look at it like colors too. You know, if you're regenerating your sex organs, let's say you're now you're dressed in red. Your consciousness is now dressed in red. Then you're dressed in orange. Then you're dressed in yellow, green. Roji Biv. You know what I mean? You got your different phases of the day, and then it cycles, and you got your micro and macro cycles throughout the day, where the consciousness is cycling through you, and then you have different states of identity depending on where the blood is, where it's allocated in your body. And if you do heavy damage to an area, then you're going to have a lot of blood in that area, and the consciousness won't circulate through those other areas. And if you pay attention to the cycle, then you will see when you damage yourself, like, oh man, there's this point in the cycle every day where I'm damaging myself so that I can stay numb and so that my blood stays in this area. I wonder why that is. It's because the parasite wants to keep the blood in that area, because the blood is like money. You can look at it like money. It's like spiritual money. So as long as the blood stays in that area, it's fueling the reality that parasite lives in within you. It's just basically funding its house, expanding that house inside of you. So then the parasite just grows, and the blood stays there. And like you look at a teratoma tumor, again, it's another being, a false self, manifesting into a physical parasite. That physical parasite creating fixations and looping behavior to stimulate and create euphoria, to distract and to drive the blood into an area. It develops a nest of parasites, because the more that you eat the mucus forming foods, the more the mucus dries and calcifies and becomes plaque, and then that becomes a nest for the parasites. And then that nest becomes a cyst, then that cyst becomes a tumor. And then if it keeps developing, it's a teratoma tumor. And if you look at teratoma tumors, they have eyes, they got teeth, they grow hair, all of that. So it's like another being usurping the throne and creating like a false throne in different areas of your body, whether it's your liver, whether it's your reproductive organs, your uterus or your prostate, whatever area is being burnt out, the blood is constantly going to that area and being driven away from the upper echelons of upper faculties of creation and awareness, so that you never inhabit those, so that the parasite has control of those. It's basically like flipping the body upside down, so that the throne's at the bottom, and then that the garbage disposal area is at the top. So you have total inversion of reality. You know what I mean? That's pretty much what is going on right now. People totally living in inverted reality. You know what I mean? If you're identifying with the body, it's like identifying with the subconscious. And again, thinking is the opposite of being aware. Thinking is the echo of awareness. It's not awareness itself. So you have the parasite driving the liquid consciousness, the blood, the metaphysical money into an area to invest in basically a reappropriation of power which is a misappropriation of power, to where it can now drive the whole vehicle and keep you in a program so that you're not taking control of those areas. The more that you want to take control of these faculties, the more that you're going to have to cleanse the parasites, the more you're going to have to let go of these ideas and these illusions. And it's a constant state of humiliation, of humiliation, humble pie, constant. It's constant humiliation. You know what I mean? And people just don't want to live with that. People have such an idea about themselves and so much fear surrounded around that identity dying, that they would actually rather die 1,000 times instead of living their whole life, passing on once and having eternal life. It's really not. It's cheap, and it's really not worth it, and it's sad. So I think I'm gonna take questions now. So you can fire away. I'm gonna take these as they come. Can you speak on blood types, eating for blood types, and breeding based on blood type? Me and my friend realized that how we naturally eat is based on our blood type, so it inspired this query: blood identity, etc. Like the angel spawn or the fallen angels, the demon spawn, the deities of the moon, the day moons. That's the RH negatives. The RH positives are the souls. You're a soul, solar, or you're lunar. You're a day moon, a demon, a fallen angel. So the solar, we can look at it like the solar is actually negatively charged. As you know, the negative rays arise like the sun, and the positive ions actually sink. So you can look at it like the positive is actually the demons, which is the draining principle. And you need to drain at some level. There's a purpose of draining, but if you have a really parasitic world, it's just letting you know that there's a bunch of false self happening, and all that false self has to get drained. So there's a bunch of parasites existing in the world so that they can destroy, because they're destroyers. You know what I mean? They're not creators. You know what I mean? The creator is the positives. The destroyers are the negatives. And the destruction is part of creation. So you would have the inclination of the destroyers is to feed off of destruction. And the inclination of the creators is to feed off of life itself. Again, feeding is communicating. Breathing is communicating. Feeding, all of that is communication. The way that you feed yourself is determining the way that you communicate with yourself, and vice versa. The way that you communicate yourself is determining the way you feed yourself. So if you're negative, you're going to be more inclined to eating or consuming things that are destructive. Whether it's like, you can have a completely perfect diet, but then you be, I don't know, just a parasitic entity in another way. You feed off of energy in another way. And at this point in life, so many people are living by the standard of the negatives, that everybody is in that flow of destruction. So the positives would be more people that are more inclined to live off life. Anybody can start to live off a life, though. It's a huge process to stop accepting parasitic energy, to where you can start to let that go, and then you can start to see opportunities to live off a life, as opposed to living off of decay and the scavenger energy, the destructive energy. So, I mean, I don't know if that answered your question, but I mean, I don't know what you're really asking for exactly. I would say the more life, obviously, more living things. You don't have to destroy a plant to eat of its fruit. You don't have to destroy anything to breathe, and you don't destroy water when you drink it, obviously. So, what I mean. And even when you pluck leaves from a plant, that doesn't mean you necessarily kill it. Not all plants are going to die from that. They can regenerate. So it's different levels, obviously, of life and different levels of scavengery. You know what I mean? You can scavenge. You could be like if Elon Musk became a vegan, that wouldn't, or even if he's a raw vegan, that wouldn't mean he's not a scavenger still energetically. You know what I mean? Like you can still be a scavenger. Maybe look at it like an iceberg. Like mechanically, you might eat a certain way, but energetically, you consume energy that's toxic. You let energy that's toxic flow through you. So it's a process, man. It's a process of letting go of all the benefits of the scavenger lifestyle. And they're really not benefits. They're just creature comforts that are creating a lot of discomfort in the long run. Can you and Farrell make a holistic Tinder? So many chicks be jabbed, shaking my head. That's hilarious. Man, I don't know. I really don't know, bro. I don't really know who would indulge in it. I think who would be good for that would be like Robert Morris, right? Robert Morris had it. I feel like so many chicks from that came my way that it was like, I never went to his shit, but it was almost like I was in the rafters at Robert Morris or something, and then these people came to see me because they went through that process. But I feel like maybe you should reach out to him to set up a network. I don't know, because he got the people coming in person and also online, and I feel like that might be a better common ground to work from. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really. I'm not versed in anybody that's versed in apps. I got a great idea for an app besides that app. So contact me if you know how to make apps. We could get some money. I got a great idea for an app. I'm scared to even say it. So because again, I'm scared because I haven't enhanced myself with the tools that will create the security that I can make the app myself. So um yeah, as far as making a Tinder, I don't know, man. We got other things I think that us as individuals need to make before we can do supply a service like that to people in general. Um, Maybe I'll make a website though. I think Squarespace, right? They got message boards and stuff. Maybe the website will be a nice place for people to connect that. I don't know, man. At this point, it's kind of up in the air. I think you do meet who you love, doing what you love, though, man. If you're doing things that you love, you're really in alignment with creation, then it's just gonna happen. It's just gonna be a part. It's gonna inherently be in the path for you. I don't think you can even avoid it at that point if you invest in creation. If you invest in creativity, then you're investing your sexual energy one way or another. Mental energy is still rooted in sexual energy, so you're still investing your sexuality into whatever you create. So if you were to do that, invest in making clothes or something. In that process, if you truly enjoy the processes, then you're going to be granted other processes that come with that investment. And, um, you know, just really, you're not being against. That's when Pharaoh says being anti-sexual. That's another thing. I think what he means, like, if you're afraid to invest in yourself and invest in not being a boss or not having a boss, if you're afraid to invest in that, then you're anti-sexual in a sense. You're afraid to invest your sexuality into controlling your own destiny, and then with that, you would obviously control the whatever beings that come through your body, um, and whatever beings come to your body. So, I really think that it's more of an energetic thing. I mean, the more that you're yourself, the more that your toroidal field is just going to communicate, connect. You're going to connect with people in dreams that have already reached deep enough inside themselves to reach you. And the more potent you become, the more I think it's inevitable. We're in an energy grid of consciousness. So if you're potent, life is going to shift you into a place where you can exhibit that potency. You're going to get different arenas, whether it's a womb or, a field of study, what have you. It's just more so about your potency and that just comes down to your alignment with yourself. Do you give dog shots? I don't believe in vaccines, but I don't know if it's different for pets, which I doubt. I don't give dog shots. And I feel like dogs get parvo and stuff because they're in an environment that isn't holistic. Like I live in a place where the microbial flow on the ground, there's more microbes competing with each other. So there's no like dominant microbe. Like if you have like parvo or whatever, um, those microbes are running rampant because you live in on concrete or you live in an artificial lawn, an artificial setting. So now you can have this dominant parasite all on the soil or whatever on your area. But if you're living in nature, then there's an equilibrium there. So everything keeps itself in check. It's like a microbiome on the forest floor. Why is melanin so special? I don't understand, because the melanin people of the world commit more crime and are brainwashed by globalists. Um, Anybody creating is using their neuromelanin. No matter what you create, you're using your neuromelanin. Um, Melanin is the basis of communication. Um, Melanin is light. Melanin determines your potency, and if you don't use your potential, then yeah, it's a tragedy. You have a greater responsibility the more melanin you have. So again, that's why it's important that if you are melanated, that you stay aligned with yourself, or that energy is going to get used against you. And since there's a lot of energy, it's going to get used in atrocious ways. And that's just sad, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? With great power comes great responsibility. Energy is responsibility. Power is energy. Energy is, there's no separation. So um, they're the fathers and mothers of the species. If you are pale, you just have to go back more generations. But if you go back far enough, you come from dark people too. That look like you, or you might be a graft that's mixed with a bunch of things, but those bunch of things still come from an archetype. An arc means dark, dark type. An archetype. Arc means dark. So when people say the patriarch, the matriarch, that's dark. The dark mother, the dark father, that's the beginning. Because out of darkness comes the light. Melanin is light. So um that's really about it, man. I mean, if the patriarchs and matriarchs are in accord with life, then life is at peace. Life is in harmony. Life is content. Even the slaves live well in a place where you have order at the top. But if there's no order at the top or at the bottom, however you want to look at it, the root, however you want to look at it, the root of the tree, if there's order at that point, then all the branches and all the grafts on those branches, they live okay. But if the root is corrupted, then everybody suffers, no matter what. We're all living in a slave state with false autonomy, basically, at this point, because we're living completely upside down. The order is completely wrong. You got spirit bound beings controlling the souls. The spirit bound beings are more so like regulators, daemons, that are here to regulate. You know what I mean? And if like kind of like a college professor, you know what I mean? The college professor, the souls come in, they teach the souls that are, they can move on from this experience, from this matrix. The college professor stays there. They don't leave. They stay in that matrix. And the college professor gets to evolve by evolving the students. He's a program. So he gets to, as he evolves, upgrades the program, then the students upgrade, and then he can, release the change and move toward a celestial state instead of being bound by the demonic state, the physical demonic state. So if you have the professors basically um, usurping the students and taking all their essays and using them to make patents and create things, and taking all their work, and then making sure the students never learn, and not being a resource, then he gets to reign in hell, and rather than serve in heaven. And then the souls, if they follow that, it's a parasitic cycle, because the professor is learning from the soul how to be, be eternal instead of being infinite in an infinite loop. So the professor's learning from the soul. So he's following the soul really to learn to be a mirror, to reflect, to show the soul itself so that it can move on from the experience. But if the soul starts to follow the professor, then it's just a closed loop. The professor's following the soul's following. I mean, you got this loop instead of just being clear mirrors and then moving forward with your evolution. And you know, a soul is solar, uh, a spirit is lunar. Is lunar. You know what I mean? It's a loon. It's not a soul. It's a loon. It's a day moon. So it's it's a different type of evolution. It's not the same. It doesn't have the same path. You know what I mean? Like a soul has a different path. It has like an elephant isn't concerned with trying to be a giraffe and do what a giraffe is trying to do. They have different processes of evolution. So if people just focused on their own processes and expressing themselves fully, then they can aid in the whole process of life itself. But yeah, you got at this point, you might as well just save yourself. You know what I mean? And in that process, you'll save others because it'll just create ripples. But you there's certain things that you will not. You know what I mean? If it's the patriarchs and matriarchs aren't living in accord with nature and life, then it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? There's things that you're not going to be able to. Those are problems that are not for you. And as more you concern yourself with problems that you can't fix or repair, the more that you're going to burn out your energy and be a waste. And then you're just another maggot, another um, dead apple. You know what I mean? Because again, like we were saying, like I made that metaphor, a tree drops plenty, like an apple tree drops plenty of apples, but most of those apples become fertilizer. Most of those apples do not create other trees. So you can't be focused on all these other apples. You can't be like, oh man, why don't you guys blossom and bloom and become trees with me? No, they are designed to go through their process, become fertilizer, and then maybe they'll transmigrate and eventually get it. Maybe. Who knows? But you'll never know. You'll never get another perspective to really know unless you fully blossom yourself. So you can't really be concerned with what they're doing. You just have to kind of respect the fact that the originals they can shed light on your original state, or the original state of your ancestry. And you know that's really about it. You know what I mean? And as far as them committing atrocities, you know what I mean? um Again, like I said, it's you got this point now where the fallen angels are perpetuating the parasite loop and fostering it so that people keep hurting themselves. Souls keep hurting themselves so that they stay in the loop and they keep feeding them. They keep the more beings they can keep locked in this loop of memories, the longer that they can stay in it and stay dominating this loop of memories, because they're afraid to move on to something else, to walk in the likeness of the creator and move on to a new experience, or to live in harmony with the creator. So they're fostering this looping behavior that keeps the melanated in this trap that many of them, yeah, at some level they tied themselves into it. I mean, there's a free will zone. So people at this point, a lot of them is making decisions to hurt themselves. But if they have all this amnesia from trauma, from war, from colonization, then it's more so just about reigniting that knowledge of self. And the only way that you can do that is just through yourself, and circulating the blood through yourself. And then the consciousness will circulate in the collective more, and then you have the flow of economy circulating through them. So they I always like to say, man, people, I know people feel the different ways about solar and electric energy or whatever, but obviously electric cars, you need to mine lithium, um, and that creates more carbon. And a carbon neutral world is a world where they're trying to neutralize the carbon. They're trying to neutralize or neuter the melanated so that they can control their creative faculty for them. So that's what the whole global warming agenda is. It's just another repackaged version of colonization and dominating the melanin and selling it back to them. And that's when you're looking at energy like this, I personally feel like if you freed up the pipelines and you just brought the price of oil down, Keystone Pipeline, all these pipelines, if you let the pipelines flow, then the demand for oil will be different because you have an abundance of oil. The price will be low, then the price of food will go down, price of heating and cooling your home will go down. Then people would not be so focused on filling their car with gas or feeding, energy, just feeding themselves with, this food that they might not need, but they need to stimulate themselves to have a house to exist on this hamster wheel. If you was to free that up, that to create an abundance of energy to drive the price down of oil, I don't think it would take more than 5 or 10 years for the melanated to reach a certain state of security through tapping. Once they're secure, then they can tap into the melanin more. Then they can innovate. Then they can create more. Because everything that's ever been created is people using their neuromelanin or melanin in general. I mean, we could go into any invention ever, man. Really, every invention ever was created by some melanated person that they hide, or somebody that's heavily neuromelanated and they just look pale on the outside. You know what I mean? And they come from melanated people, and they just hide their own history. They whitewash their own history. So one way or another, it's coming from the melanin. So if you was to free up the security to where people could live a little bit, I feel like 5, 10 years there'd be so many inventions because people wouldn't have to worry about eating and driving to work and heating their houses and paying the electric bills. If they didn't have to worry about that, 5, 10 years max, there'd be so much innovation. Life would be so much easier, and then people the cream will rise to the top, and people will be able to see life for what it is and dwell in reality, and then the true likeness of of man or being human will show itself. So then it'll force everybody into that accord in a sense, because once you see it, the truth like that, you can't unsee it. So I feel like that's really why we're in the state we're in right now. Because all wars are about energy, obviously. I believe in you. You can be an NFL player. Yeah, man. I know that, man. I mean, you can do a lot of things. I mean, you're gonna. Best way to detox the vax. I wouldn't know. I never got the vax, so I couldn't just tell you. You know what I mean? Because I never got it. But I've heard of people saying like the pine needle therapy or the bee sting therapy, or all different types of ways of detoxing. You know what I mean? Maybe ivermectin. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, man. I never did it, and I can't tell. I could tell you things that could help, but who knows what's going to happen to these people in 5, 10 years? I don't really know the long term effects. I mean, to me, from my research, it doesn't look good, but it could be fear mongering. Yes, I'm sober, but I had a salad today, so I'm not food sober. That's why it's important to detox the gut, taking care of your immune system. Of course. How to release blockages in the brain and jaw. I've been feeling a lot of pain when I have rapper, weed, or shrooms. Why don't you just stop doing those things, man? Stop trying to vicariously experience yourself through these things, or breath work. And if it's teeth or jaw, then you're not walking how you're talking. You're not walking the walk. You're talking the talk and not walking the walk. That's what happens, That's why the mouth is suffering, to try to make you even stop speaking and stop chewing and doing things like that, because you're not walking. It's not, your talk's not aligned with your walk when you have mouth injuries. So when you have pain, when you have rapid weed or shrooms, I mean, why don't you just stop doing those things for a while? and then come back to it. You ever quit weed for a year or 2 years and then come back to it? It's almost like the first time, right? It's great, right? It's way better that way. So imagine if you quit for 10 years, you know. Same thing with shrooms. You know, it'd be a way better experience. You know what I mean? The more that you do it, the more you're gonna need more. The more you're gonna need more and more and more to have the same experiences, which is just yourself. Can that expression of self ever really manifest in alignment on the internet? Nah, I mean, the internet really can't capture that, man. It's a holistic thing, man. You can't. The internet's not going to document all the little minute things that go into self discovery and self realization and self application. All those things can't be encapsulated. The body is what is what encapsulates that. You know what I mean? It's on the Ethernet. The body's on the Ethernet. That encapsulates that expression, but the internet's just a poor version that's crudely pasted over top of that grid on a bullshit grid. If you're white but come from dark, are you still considered melanated? Come from dark heritage but grounded, grinded. I don't know the last word, but nobody's white. People are pale. They're pink, which is just light dark. Nobody's white. White means um above reproach, or you know um completely what's it called, unblemished. So it means you're untouchable if you're white. To call yourself white is white supremacy. So it's you're pale. You know what I mean? You're pink. You're ruddy. You're beige. But those are all just light or pale blackness or pale darkness, however you want to look at it. So you're just really light skinned. It's not. I don't even like to say fair because that would mean dark is unfair. But you're really pale skin darkness. That's like really about it, man. I don't know how to say it. There's just not that much light in the system. You know what I mean? But again, your body is designed for your path. So even if you are pale, your body is designed for that path. It's perfect for that path that you have. So whatever body that you have, it's for a specific thing. It's a specific key for a specific lock. What about red hair melanin? Red hair melanin is pheomelanin. It's sulfur based. That would be the demons like myself. Um, if your hair isn't black, you have some pheomelanin. It's just that simple. Eumelanin is what makes the darkness. If you're white but come from melanated individuals, are you more intuitive? Feel very attached. Again, nobody's white, but more intuitive. We live in ether. You can call melanin ether. If your melanin is activated and not dormant, then you're gonna be tapped in way more because you're gonna be able to communicate way more with life around you. The stars sit in this melanin, in this darkness, and that's the means for the light to communicate through. You can look at light as darkness in motion. So the medium for the light is the darkness. You know what I mean? The darkness in motion is moving through the eternal stillness or the eternal darkness that is the melanin. So you could say, you got melanin itself, and then eumelanin is the the light in motion, however you want to look at it. But it's all ether. It's all carbon or whatever, different densities of melanin. So intuitiveness is just being just more in touch with your body in general. That's really about it. You know what I mean? Your melanin is communicating with the ethernet around you, whether you pale or dark. And the ether around you is the ether in you, obviously. So Is it okay to make money in a not so holistic way temporarily until you can find ways to make money holistically? Yeah, but you got to use every penny towards becoming your own boss and paying yourself. You got to focus everything on not needing a system and stepping away. You can't like half-ass it. Like you got to really have a plan. You can't just be like, oh, I'm just working a job and I'm just gonna work this job until life makes me not work it. You have to actually actively meet life. Like, yo, I don't want to have a boss anymore. I don't want to trade my breath for, an unholistic experience. So you have to be active in your role to really fulfill your role, to really take the role that you're really supposed to be in and use your gifts in the organic way instead of the inorganic way that's damaging life itself. So, you know, it's everything that's going to give to you is going to take equally, but you lose yourself, the alignment with yourself. Energetically, you if you give to something that's not holistic, you're going to get back, you're going to exchange your truth, give it to illusion, turn that illusion, you're transmuting that illusion and making it reality. You turn it into a Benz or something, right? You make that thing, you make a Benz reality. So now you're energetically, your reality is holding that illusion there. And it's allocating energy for that. So it's just an exchange. You've exchanged your reality for illusion. And it's an energetic positioning that you're now in actually, and that thing is now in. It's solidified consciousness. It's stuck breath basically. So you know, you just got to make things work to where they you don't really you never lose sight of the fact that you don't own anything but yourself and your breath. Everything else is transient, and and they all come and go. If you have a brand new car, you should just be using it for holistic purposes and be constantly either getting a brand new car every year and not really holding on attachment to it and being ready to sell it at any moment, or you know or you're just going to stay vain, man. You're just going to have this solidified this car that's like a representation of your body, which is a car, a vehicle, and it's like validating your existence in an externalized way, and just solidifying and holding on to your reality and soaking up that energy, and it starts to own you. You don't really own it. It's kind of like a give and take there, where you got it on a leash, it's got you on a leash, you know and you just want to do things appropriately. You know what I mean? If you got a car, just got to be used for what it needs to be used for, and you should know how to fix it. You know what I mean? It's just like if you have a house, you should have as many rooms as you need. If you get a mansion, you should have a family to fill that mansion with. It's like if you buy a mansion and you don't use those rooms, you're just going to attract parasites to live in those rooms, and it's all just going to get used, in a way that's destructive, in a vain, euphoric way. When people have bad energy attached to them, is there ways to protect ourselves from it, or do we have to move environments? You gotta look at yourself like an alchemist, like you're not solid. Energy flows through you, and you just don't stay attached to it. You know what I mean? You just gotta be yourself, and just constantly reflect self to them, so that they see themselves. And you can't get lost in the emotion of things because it'll interfere with their process of seeing themselves through you. So as long as you stay steadfast and being yourself, there's no way that they'll stick around. They'll purge themselves from your life, or life will give you an opportunity to move in another way. Also, when you and Farrell making a new podcast, I doubt that's ever going to happen again. How did you find out about Auric therapy, and what got you to try it? I never tried it. I never drank my urine, but the first time I heard about it was Sebi in 2008, in that one video when he's talking about copper and carbon, he's like, talking about like the 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 pineal gland is carbon, or melanin or whatever, and he says that the pineal gland is carbon. You can't find melanin on the periodic table, and then the cerebral cortex is copper, and the only thing that makes electricity is the friction between copper and carbon, and that's what sparks life. And in that video, he talks about he did 6 weeks of just drinking water, and then he was confident enough to drink his urine. He said he went blind for a few days, and then he said he felt better. Um, so I think if I ever got to that state, I've been on 6 weeks of just coconut water. My urine did look just like water at that point, but I didn't drink it, so I never drank it, and it's not something I really talk about unless if I'm in that state again, then I go from there. Do Spaniards and Mexicans have melanin? Yeah, everybody has melanin, or you would die. If melanin is carbon, you know what I mean. So if you're pink, you still have melanin. It's just not as much melanin. It's the amount of melanin that you need for your body for whatever you're supposed to be doing. You have a more specific thing that you're probably supposed to be doing here. Whereas people that have a lot of melanin, they can do a bunch of things. You know how it is, man. You meet one of these dudes from these neighborhoods, man. They be like a barber, an athlete, a rapper, a mechanic. Um, they be like 30 things. You know what I mean? And it's it's just a lot more things there, a lot more potential that when you got that much more light. So you can get lost in that potential though. You can start to think like, oh, I got all these things that I can do, but there's only one path that you can be yourself on. There's a bunch of illusory paths and side paths, but there's only one that is the self. So you know um I don't think people should get lost in wanting more melanin because they got their problems that they have to deal with too. They got responsibility, I should say. Problems in the sense that challenges, they're relative challenges. They're going to be challenged relative based on their responsibility, their energy. So, I mean, the grass always seems greener, but your body's designed for what your experience. What are your thoughts on mixing races or religions or skin? I don't know why you would do it, if you ask me. I don't know why you would do it. Unless you just want chaos. I don't know why you would do it. I don't know nobody. You're gonna have to sacrifice so many things. Somebody gonna have to sacrifice themselves. If the dark skinned person is with someone pale, they're gonna have to sacrifice so many things. They're gonna have to turn their back on whoever. If you're like, if it's a dark skinned woman, she gonna have to turn her back on her father to be with a pale male. She has to say like, what I mean, she's turning her back on that man in that line of men to do that. And as far as religions go, I don't know. Yeah, you'd want continuity so you can raise the children. Because why would you mix or have children or be together like that unless you want to raise children together and have continuity in the ideals or the value system? So, um, you know, eagles don't breed with hawks. They're both really incredible birds, but they don't breed with each other. Falcons don't breed with eagles. They breed with their own. And if you have anything other than that, you start to get into abominations. You know what I mean? And it's really selfish, man. I feel like it's really selfish of the parents to do something like that. It's so vain. Most of it is vanity and energy lust. A lot of it. You know, some people are uh, pale and heavily. They have heavy neuromelanin, and their skin is just pale. And you know what I mean. And they are, O positive, and they have a soul. And but again, you can still look at the hair. You can look at the hair of people and see what their lineage and lineage is. You know what I mean? It's if it's straight, it's more lunar. If it's kinky, it's more solar. You know, and people have just crossbred so much that everything is just a wash now. But there's always somebody that's held it down and can and still stay contained, or the life would cease to exist if there was no more aboriginals or people that was complete, or what people will say pure, or whatever, pure blood. Life would cease to exist if there was no more of those. You need to have an archetype to have all the other fragments they are sustained. They live off of that. As soon as the mother or father dies, then all of the fragments die. They're an extension. Parasites don't want to kill the host; they just want to live off it. So, I really feel like, yeah, mixing races is not ideal. I think people can trade, work together, but I think your bodies are operating at different temperatures. Your processes is totally different. Everything's different. I mean, it's not even as much as people say it's like only a 1 or 2% difference in the shades from dark or white people or whatever, supposed white people, but that's a massive difference. A 1% difference or 2% difference in a species is a big difference. Um, I just feel like you got to respect the designs. The more that you respect the designs, the more that you stay blessed, man. The more that you try to interfere, like use the carpenter's tools, the more you're gonna cut your hand. So I think you got to let the master carpenter do his thing and accept the designs. And I really feel like um, you're gonna have certain instances where certain things are just gonna happen, like a liger. Tigers and lions, they do exist in some areas in the same habitat. So there's gonna be some tigons and ligers in certain places. It's gonna happen. It's gonna manifest, but you don't. That's just gonna be a small minority of people, instead of today where it's just that people just haphazardly just having sex with anybody. It's all based off the energy and the euphoria, and people just having just a bunch of random children. You know what I mean? And it's just not. It's really selfish, man. Because like a lot of the times, you're throwing your ancestor around, so you want to put them in the most fertile soil that you can put them in. And in fertile soil that's congruent with their nature. You know what I mean? If you plant cucumber seeds anywhere on earth, you're going to get cucumbers. But if you plant it in the environment that's conducive to cucumbers, that is, during the time that's best for cucumbers, then you get the best cucumbers you can get. It's not going to live a miserable life. Have you ever seen a plant that it's not living up to its best potential? And if you keep it just enough alive, it's basically suffering. You might as well kill a plant, man. Like, I'm not saying you should just kill a people, but I'm just saying, like, you should just never kill that idea of crossing. I feel like that's, what I mean? You should just kill that idea. I really feel like the people that are here, they're here. What are you going to do? But at some level, for them to dwell in reality, they're going to have to say, like, all right, well, everything that I'm getting that's beneficial is coming from the melanin. All of the creativeness, all of the strength, all the speed, all of that all the mental speed, as long as they stay healthy and don't eat colonized food, then all those benefits from that are coming from melanin. So go in that direction. You know, um, I think it's that simple. You got plenty of dark skinned people that are all walks of life all over the world too. It's not like you have to just stay in one realm of darkness too. It's like so many different types of dark skinned people, and it's the gang of different pale people. But if you still stay in the design, again, you can see you got kinky hair pale people. They can breed with dark skinned kinky hair people. You got pale people with straight hair. They can breed with dark people with straight hair, like Dravid. Not all Dravidians have straight hair, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. Like, the design is the design. If you want the child to have continuity and not be confused genetically, and so that they can be more themselves, and they don't have to go through this whole process of like figuring things out, and like usually one side gets abused. You're usually going to abuse one side. Like, I feel like for me that I abused all the talents that came from the melanin. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's like an embodiment of the thing that created me. Like, control rate, prostitution created me. So it's basically my life is an expression of that. Like, I'm getting all these gifts that come from this melanated woman that is inside of me. And the pale side of me has abused the melanated woman repeatedly. It's like an expression of the same thing. All the gifts that I've had, whether it was sexually or on the football field or anything, mentally, anything, I'm abusing that. It's the same story over and over again. So it's like some side's gonna get abused, man. Like some side's gonna, you're splitting them. I don't see a point in making them have to pick a side when they could just be completely themselves and be one thing. That's what holistic is, to be complete. You know what I mean? Like if you already here, you're already here, but you still would want to go towards the darkness if you are, gonna go towards sanity and you have darkness in you. The further that you go away from the darkness and you're dark, the further you're going from sanity. You know what I mean? And that's just my view on it, man. And as far as religions, yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, same thing. Like I said, you want continuity. I don't feel like if you was a Muslim and you were a Christian, then the Christian might want to eat pork. So I don't see why you would want the chaos. What's your opinion on trans people? I mean, they're anti-sexual, man. They're just masturbators. It's, you know what I mean? It's an abomination unto the Lord. I don't know what else to tell you. They're transient at the same time. They're temporary. Like it's totally against creation. So it's anti-sexual. I don't know what else to tell you. Like I can't, like homosexuals and trans, I don't have no problem with them. I feel like they're already stopping their own line, and it's just nature taking its course. You just got to protect your own children and shed light on the whole spectrum of the reality, like that it is not sex, it is masturbation with a partner if it's not creating babies. And if they're doing that as trans people, then you already know that it's just hosts, just bringing in more abominations. How to detox cavities. Oh man, it's gonna be a checklist. You got to start organ detox first, and then your body's gonna go through the checklist from the inside out. You're gonna get to the teeth at some point, but you have to really change your diet before your body will give you more tooth power. Because if it's trying to destroy your teeth so that you don't eat the shit that you eat, so that you can regenerate. But most people are just gonna keep doing things to be able to continue to eat what they want to eat. Why do you call carbon melanin when you say melanin is carbon? What is the etymology of the word melanin? Who created that word, and what's the purpose of using that word? And if not carbon, carbon is the source of the true potential expressed in 3D form. I mean, I can say ether. You can say ether, melanin, darkness. You could call it Tao. I'm just using it to communicate in all the different ways. I feel like I don't stress any word more than another, but it comes from the Greek word melanos, melanin. Melanin isn't on the periodic table, obviously. So on a physical level, it doesn't exist. What we're attributing to melanin is carbon. However you want to look at it. If you're using these words to label these things, but I know people use the words in different words, and I'm just communicating with all walks of life. I'm not really overemphasizing. There's more amnesia when you come into a body when we have different race parents or same race parents, more memory from your ancestors. You're more fragmented, man. It's more scrambled. Like, it's just more scrambled, man. It's like if you see any plant that's multiple plants, if you look at any plant that's multiple plants, like you can just see like different parts of it, like the first generation especially, different parts of it don't develop like how they're supposed to. And other parts might overdevelop, be more mature than other areas. And it's just because there's no unity in the body. The templates don't match. But the oldest template is what's going to dominate always. So if you breed with someone that has an old and more ancient template, the ancient template is always going to dominate. There's going to be you're going to meet somewhere kind of in the middle between them, the common ancestor or common energetic space occupier between those templates, that's who you're gonna get. But you get the frame typically from the more ancient, whoever, if you have a more ancient person in the mix, that will dominate. Just like you put chocolate and vanilla, it dominates the vanilla. So should mixed race people mix with the darker side or not breed at all? It depends, man. Like some people, like I said, man, they're not. Some people are pale because more so of different reasons, man. They're not pale because they're so-called European or Caucasoid. They might be pale because of, inbreeding, or pale because of fungus, what people call leprosy, vitiligo, eczema, a fungus that has like become generational. So they might just appear pale, but they have a lot of neuromelanin. So they might not be really that mixed. They might be like dominantly Negroid or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of pale people that are really like what you would call like a Dravidian archetype. Like a dark skinned straight hair person. They just have leprosy. They have fungus that's making them pale, or they're coming from inbreeding. So you want to go towards the dark type of your version, one way or another. So if you're straighter hair, you would want to breed with someone darker, but you don't want to breed that far away because like you got to think about it. Like if a dark person wants to breed with you and you're pale, it's usually going to be some type of problem there. Like why they want to do that. Well, you don't want to drag them down at the same time. So you want to get somebody closer to your complexion, but maybe a little bit darker. You don't want to go too far because you're like straining the child between those two polarities. And then, then you have all this separation within them. It's like a gap between them because there's the templates that are so far from each other. So whatever version or shade you are of whatever archetype, you'd want to return to the archetype, the dark type, whatever you are. If you're pale, that's why a lot of pale people get into the Hinduism, man, because they really are Dravidian. They come from Dravidian. Like the oldest, truest Aboriginal that they come from, way back, is some Dravidian that got caught up in their loop, and so they gravitate towards Hinduism. A lot of that is that, or any of those Indian religions. It's like 100 religions over there, but like there's a lot of that is coming from them Andaman people and them Dravidians. So that's who deep down, that's the reality inside it, and that's the melanin is reality. That's the truth, the light that is within them. So that's what it comes out as. That's what they gravitate towards those cultures. So they should go more in that direction. But you gotta be like conscious of like, why does this darker person want to breed with me? Are they self-hating? You gotta, do they like you because you have integrity, or do they just because they want to dominate, or they just self-hating? You gotta ask them questions. How do you cleanse your aura and your spirit by not interacting with people with bad habits? Oh man, you just gotta do breath work, man, and you can use different oils on different parts of your body, and I think you should read the book Healing a Day. I know you got that book. So yeah, anybody wants to get my PDFs, like I said, I got 44 PDFs and 5 audiobooks for $50. So it's 49 things for $50. And then I'll send you the breathwork videos as well. But Healing a Day is in there. What do you do? The more you do breathwork, the more that you realize like I'm exchanging my breath for bullshit experiences. This is not worth it. This is not worth my time and my breath. So I'm not doing this no more. And you're just gonna be more and more direct with your communication with yourself and others, and it's gonna purge people. What do you do or use to detox your liver? Thank you for a great live. Wormwood, black walnut, quassia, activated charcoal, diatomaceous earth, bentonite, clay, turpentine, yellow dock, sarsaparilla, red clover, Uh, milk thistle. Can't believe I didn't start with that. Milk thistle. Yeah. So the final destination is to try not to exploit any of the stimulation at all, or find a balance. You got to look at the difference between nourishment and stimulation. Nourishment's always going to be steady, you know? Like if you work out, you're going to have this gradual point to like this rush of endorphins. It's not going to be like a pre-workout where it's just like 0 to 60. You know, you're going to start working out, you start to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and then you're reaching that point where you're at the peak of the workout. You know, you're releasing endorphins. You feel your body, your circulation it's all getting circulated. All those endorphins are in your blood, getting circulated. You feeling the euphoria from that, and it's steady. And then it's like a gradual rise and decline, and then it's not a spike. You know, that's rapey. You know, you don't just go right into benching 300 pounds. You know what I mean? Unless you're already gunky. You know what I mean? So like you have to warm up. What do you think about people using their false self as a coping mechanism, especially in the UK? I think most people are coping and most people are sad, to be honest. We're in a very sad state of affairs. And yeah, man, if you're in a place that's not getting much sun, it's gloomy, and you're not gloomy by nature, then you're going to suffer, you know what I mean? But if you're personified fungus, then you're going to gravitate more towards that area because your body's controlled and regulated by fungus so much that when it heats up, it bothers the fungus. So then you feel like you're bothered because the fungus dominates so much of the body, and you feel like you're in a mood, but the body's just in a mood because the fungus has a problem with it. So um, that's what a lot of that is, man. And again, even in the colder climates, it's better to be dark. You know, polar bear has black skin underneath the translucent or clear fur. It has black skin, so it makes more sense to be dark even in the coldest climate to have dark skin because you can absorb more sunlight and heat up better. But you will suffer more if you don't get vitamin D in some form or fashion if you have more melanin. So if you're in those climates, you need to either go and recharge periodically in a warmer climate, or you're gonna have to find vitamin D from other ways, or you're gonna just do a lot of fucking breath work to get the light from the air. So it depends on how you want to balance your life out. As far as using coping mechanisms, uh, so much things is coping mechanisms, man. Uh, I don't know what to say. There's really no sanctioned time for it. You know what I mean? There's no point in being distracted. Learning is great, man. Learning feels great. Nothing really feels better than learning or applying what you've learned. So I feel like why don't you just focus on learning something instead of like focusing on personality that's an amalgamation of behaviors that you've been exposed to. It's not really the truth. It's just like a veil over the truth. It's just like there to like protect your essence because you're defensive and afraid. I don't think personality is the best thing to focus on. I think it should just come of itself from your experiences. And the more that you learn, the more experiences you have, your personality is just going to be accented by those experiences. So you won't have to really try to develop one or cope with it. Your definition of how to manifest, any links to the moon cycles. Um, you're going to manifest one way or another. You're going to manifest disease or prosperity or contentment one way or another. So it's just about just paying attention to the energy that's cycling through you, and then using it through the appropriate channels, channeling the correct energy, you know, at different times of day, and just using the energy appropriately, and you're gonna manifest one way or another, whether it's you manifesting the decadence, decay, or constructiveness. You know, I mean, you're gonna manifest. It's inevitable. It's kind of just what you do just by being. It just happens. So it's more so just about paying attention. So yeah, everything factors in though. Moon cycles, all that's going to factor in. So just pay attention as much as you can. Cross reference all the cycles, and don't stay attached to them. Just, learn from them, and don't, live by them. Just pay attention to them. Don't, you know, people I feel like, start to identify with certain cycles. You know what I mean? It holds your identity in place if you stay in a certain cycle. So you just got to watch that, not getting too attached to a cycle. I forget that. Which coping mechanism was that? I think it's the ADHD. Oh no, it's the autism thing, right? I think it's autism. The autistic likes to put things in order, in certain orders and certain cycles, because it's like a sign of autism. To a lot of people, I feel like, especially in this vaccinated world, have that trait, to where they their identity's propped up by a cycle. Um, and the cycle is basically just like keeping it there. And if you break the cycle, then the identity it comes into a vulnerable space. Thank you so much for an amazing live. Any recommendations on better sleep? Um, different essential oils on different parts of your body. You should read Healing a Day, man. I really feel like you should read Healing a Day, and not putting anything in your body before you sleep would be best. You know what I mean? Uh, maybe do an enema before bed, um, so that you can set up the cycle of having a clear colon before you go to bed, and experiencing a clear colon before you go to bed, so that you want to maintain a clear colon before you go to bed. And also prayer, man, or what people call prayer, communication, communion with the creator within. I feel like that, you know what I mean? Realizing, addressing everything that you did in a day, reflecting on the day, and then communicating with yourself on what your experience you're about to transition into, or dream into, what have you. What is your view on using psychedelics for a bridge to bring up your energy and reconnect? Remember, it's a crutch, man. I mean, you can use it. I've used them, but I would like to stay sober for the rest of my life. I really would. That would be nice. You know what I mean? It's a constant challenge, because I've expanded the void. When you expand the void like that, if you expand the void gently and just work out and just do things appropriately and just learn a little bit every day and do like gentle things to fill the void, and like, if you wake up in the morning and then you listen to loud music, it's like you just blew the void wide open. And now it's tough to go on about the rest of the day without filling that massive void. So if you like start the day off with silence, or start the day off with calm music, then the void doesn't get expanded so crazy. But if you start to take a bunch of psychedelics, like myself, like and others have, you're not going to be satisfied with just basic things, man. You're like, man, this would be life ain't cool unless the walls is breathing and spinning. It's just not cool enough, you just feel like life is not enough. You feel like you need to be entertained, and you want euphoria. It's a deep pride. It's a deep sadness too. Um, just not wanting to dwell in reality. Reality seems like it's not enough, but really you just not meeting it. So you're not enough. So it's not really, what I mean? I feel like you could use them, but they got to be appropriate. Like I said, you have to do a lot of breath work beforehand, and then do it in like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, so that your pineal lights up. You have your experience, and then you don't touch it for a year or 2 years or however, 6 months at least, something like that, man. Because otherwise, you're just not even gonna get contrast, You're just gonna, you know what I mean? You're not even really getting any contrast. You never really came down from the last blast off, really. So you're just masturbating with the upper chakras and burning them endorphins out. And again, regular life is going to be so mundane at that point. It's just like eating salt. Regular food is going to be so mundane at that point. So you just got to be careful. Why do you suggest taking shrooms or psychedelics at 2 a.m.? Because again, you're going to be unconscious. You're never, that's when you're unconscious. You're unconscious at 2 a.m. frequently, mostly, usually. So if you are awake during those times, then you're really getting in touch with the unconscious side of you, your subconscious. Everything you compartmentalize and stuff into unconsciousness. you're not using those hours for consciousness. You're not typically people aren't remembering their dreams, so not completely anyway. So if you was to do shrooms during that time, you're gonna get in touch with your state of consciousness and your bodily processes at those times. Like if you sleep every day from 9 to 5, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. or something, that's like a third of your life that you're not experiencing, that you're not acquainted with. So if you do shrooms in that period, then you're gonna get acquainted with this part of your life that you've been living. It's a whole nother life there that you're just blind to. So that'd be the better time to do it so that you can bridge the gap that way, you know, do the shrooms at that time, you know, because again, it's like light pollution. You know, if you're taking on all this light and putting all this light inside you, you'd rather it be dark outside of you, because the light, the shrooms and stuff is going to get into your bloodstream, the DMT get into your bloodstream, into your brain, and then light it up. You're so dark. So then the pineal is light sensitive. So if you do it in the darkness, you really get in touch with your darkness. Mushrooms go to the darkest part of you and light it up. And that it get all the traumas and stuff, they come up, but then all your talents and all that stuff that you buried with those traumas, you just sacrifice those things in order to bury the traumas. So if you do the shrooms and stuff at those times, then you get back in touch with that, the childhood part of you, you know, because it's an infantile energy. The shrooms, they just crossed over from the death. So like you got a bag of shit, then the shrooms grow out of it, or whatever, decayed matter, the shrooms grow out of it. They're just now, that energy just converted from death to life. Same thing with a baby, just came out of its last experience into life. So when you take that in, that energy, that consciousness in, you're going back to that state of being. You know, you're going back to the dark spots, like that crossover point, and everything that's buried there. What's the difference between straight hair and curly hair and melanated people? It's still that, like I said, straight hair is lunar one way or another, and whether you dark or light, and curly hair is solar. So it's just the polarities, you know what I mean? Positive ions, negative ions. They're just part of this body, this collective body that we live on, this cell that we call a universe, that's part of the human body, the micros, the macro, you know what I mean? It's everything is in its position, and the moon has its place in the sky, and the sun has its place. You know, the cool thing again about the loon or the moon though, the sun is never out at night, but the moon is out in the day. So the moon people can walk both ways. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm a day walker all the time. I'm like Blade. I'm a day walker. You know what I mean? The moon can be out in the day and it can be out at night. The sun is only out in the day. It has its place. You know what I mean? The moon can go, you know, basically walk in both worlds. Thoughts on virus and disease? That's so broad. That's such a broad question, man. I got a lot of thoughts. Dis-ease. Anger is dis-ease. Anxiety is dis-ease. Depression is dis-ease. If you're not at ease, you're dis-eased. Virus is just like embedded thoughts that have been incepted, that have been identified with, that are buried in there. It's information that's buried in the system that the body's identifying with, that is toxic to it. And so the body it doesn't know that it's not itself. So it accepts it as itself. But it's like a identity fraud, identity theft. It's not really there. It's not really part of the self, the true system. So it's basically like in line with it. It's like wearing a Starship Trooper. I mean, like Stormtrooper outfit, you know, on the Death Star, and you know, underneath it though is not a Stormtrooper. You know, it's a rogue entity that is perpetuating its existence by perpetuating those thoughts. And as long as you're not in touch with your breathing, it's just constantly in the background, like background noise, those thoughts. And that's what a virus is, basically. Occupying different parts of the body and keeping them not at ease. If you get all your cells in the moment, then your body's going to heat up and locate all of the rogue entities and burn them off. Is there a way you can manipulate the parasites internally, externally? Like, oh yeah, if you do breath work, your body's going to heat up. You're going to communicate. Every cell's going to communicate, and then whatever is not the self is going to get identified at that point. Once you get all the cells in the present moment, and that's going to take fasting and breath work. Would you say the internal is equal to the external? The internal is much greater than the external, I would say, and in the long run, because the internal, uh, you can keep going in it. It's no end to it. It's like they say, the further you go into the towel, the deeper it is. The external, I mean, man, if we're on an infinite plane and this is just all a trap, nah, I feel like we're in a cell though, in the collective body, but that's just my opinion. But I feel like the internal is limitless and the external is infinite. It's just constantly a loop, constantly changing. It's like if you change $1 for 4 quarters and then 10 dimes and then 20 nickels or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's still $1. That's the external. It's never. It's the same. It's the same through various changes. The more it changes, the more it stays the same. The more it stays the same, the more it changes. But the internal is constant. It never changes. And the further you go into that, the further you're going into eternity, and then you can traverse the finite or the infinite loop, all the different loops, all the different memories that exist, all the chains of memories, the events. It's just like a movie. These lives, it's like a organic virtual reality that you signed up for. You can go from one to the next. If you stay in touch with the constant, you can move on to another loop, another movie, another reality or reality, movie reels. Would you say that internal is equal to the X? Oh, my bad. Didn't delete that one. Are you posting this live on YouTube? Yeah, I am. What is your cleansing food cutting process from past sexual partners? You gotta, read Healing a day. But definitely gonna have to fast, man. And then it's just gonna be just getting in touch with your dreams and definitely doing as much breath work as possible. And then like they say, man, like when you pray for forgiveness, you're never gonna be forgiven until you stop doing the things that cause the problem. So as long as you show yourself that you're investing your energy a different way, then you can be, the healing has already begun and the cleansing has already begun. So I think that's it. Just realigning and appropriating the sexual energy, and then going through the mechanical end of cleansing, and fasting and breath work and enemas and all that stuff. Everything, it all helps to rinse that energy off. I have a breath work. What is a great breathing pattern to come back to the present? I have a breath work and detox playlist on my YouTube, youtube.com/ROYALT227. How do we destroy the vampire pyramid? I mean, you got to destroy it within yourself. You got to stop accepting parasitic energy. And then you got to let the chips fall where they may and move on to the next experience. Like if you beat a video game, you don't wait for everybody else in the arcade to beat the video game. You move on to the next game. You don't be like, oh man, I can't move on because everybody in here hasn't beat it. Like no, you don't. You move on because you beat it. You know what I mean? It's your experience. You don't. So you just focus on your experience, and then you can assist the collective. You know what I mean? Like you don't put the oxygen mask on others before yourself. So that's the end of that. Wait, could you get into specific differences in an unconscious and fragmented death experience and a holistic conscious one? Unconscious death experience means your body is not content and there's some resistance. If there's any resistance in the body, then you're going to just false identify and panic upon death, and it'll just be like a bad trip. and then you reincarnate back into a body unconsciously. It's just like random at that point, instead of because you have to do something random and ignorantly to die like that, and you have to live a random life, like you're not doing things precisely throughout your life. So then you die, you live how you die how you live. So you're gonna just randomly reincarnate into something, even though your true self is like, this is what I need to do, reincarnate specifically. I know this is what I need to do. This is a tailored experience for me specifically. But since you do things randomly, you're gonna miss all the signs, and then you're gonna, you're just gonna have a bunch of scrambled messages from yourself about when to or what you are, or what you're supposed to be doing, when you're supposed to do things. So um, it's just more so you live how you die you live, man. It's, if you're present, then you remain present, and you never experience death. You have eternal life. And I don't mean that like in this mechanical way, you know what I mean? I mean, if you do have it in some mechanical way, that would just be like no longer falling asleep in these dreams. You're just dwelling in reality, dwelling in eternity, and you have this eternal body, and you're not falling asleep. You're not falling asleep within dreams, within dreams, within dreams, which is what this life pretty much is at this point. And so you have a physical element that you're experiencing the sensations of life through, but you're just in this immortal body that is just constantly, even when it's dreaming, it's conscious. So there's no separation. So you never, when you die, there's no separation between life and death. So thoughts on teaching yourself math. It's never too late to start, man. It's never too late to start. I feel like math is, why not? Enhance yourself in every way you can. Are many of us doomed for an unconscious death? Most people, yeah. Like I said, if an apple tree drops hundreds of apples or 100 apples, very few, if any, will become trees. Most become fertilizer. What does it mean if you have nightmares for dreams? What does that mean? There's something unaddressed. There's some traumas. Maybe not in this life, maybe in the last life or last body, what have you, and it's just stored in there. Like we always talk about that metaphor that Pharaoh said, like, you got a cassette tape. If you keep dubbing over it and dubbing over and dubbing over it, you can have 5 songs on this little cassette tape, but the original, they're all still there. You have one song that'll play when you put it in, whatever was dubbed over most recently. That's the life that you have right now, but all those other lives are still there in all the layers. So whatever traumas you went through in all the layers that have been unaddressed, which are just repeating in this life in some scrambled fashion, those are all still there. And if you're not addressing it now, the minute things that made those things manifest, then you're just going to keep readdressing it in your dreams. So like you're constantly, probably, for the most part, most people are not remembering their dreams because they're constantly going into the dream state and dreaming the unconscious death that they're going to have based on their behaviors in this life. They're manifesting, they're investing and manifesting an unconscious death throughout their investments, their daily investments every day. So every night they go to sleep and they have dreams of that unconscious death, which is awake, ironically, and not in a dream state, and not, an acceptance and something that you're preparing for, which you should be preparing for every day. You should look at every day like a life and death. So um, that's what nightmares are, just something unaddressed, something that's buried in there under all those layers of tape, of dub overs that are on that same cassette tape, or something in your life that happened that you're burying. You never can hide from yourself. It'll come out in your dreams, and you just wake up tired, and then your body just like, well, you just need to go back to sleep. You need to, or do things that bring about consciousness so that you can go back to sleep consciously, or more consciously, more present, so that you can remember the dream, retain it, and then move on from your experiences instead of looping and doing the same things, and committing to those things that block the dreams every night. You're having dreams of the 60s. It's strange dreams in a row. Does it happen to you? Um, yeah, I have dreams of all different timelines. You know what I mean? It's something that is not addressed, that is constantly looping. It's still right now. The '60s is still right now. It's like you're an amalgamation of all your ancestors. So that's all still happening right now. It's like anything that's unaddressed is still festering. So it's just what's not addressed. You wouldn't be dreaming of it. So that's it. Ciao, ciao now, y'all. I'm going to post this on the tube. Like I said, 44 PDFs and 5 audiobooks. And I think I got like 15 instructional breathwork videos for $50. You can DM me. I have the email in the description on YouTube, or however you want to do it. You know, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Zelle, and yeah, however y'all want to do it, man. That's really about it. I also do consultations, $50 for a half hour, and breathwork sessions as well, 50 for a half hour. So that's it, y'all.